Have you ever felt as though there is a wheel spinning inside your head? A wheel that you simply cannot stop. It turns and turns, replaying scenes from the past, rehearsing conversations that will never happen, and painting 1,000 different catastrophic scenarios for the future. Each thought is a spoke on this wheel, and with every rotation, the momentum builds, until the gentle hum of contemplation becomes a deafening roar of anxiety. You lie awake at night. Your body is still, but your mind is running a marathon, chasing after the what-ifs and the if-onlys, leaving you exhausted before the day has even begun. This isn't a rare affliction. It is the silent, shared condition of our modern world. We live in an age of information overload, where our phones and screens provide an endless stream of data, an endless feed of other people's lives, and an endless list of things we should be doing, or wanting, or worrying about. The pressure to be productive, to optimize every moment, has turned our minds into relentless taskmasters. We try to think our way out of this prison, believing that if we can just analyze the problem enough, if we can just find the perfect strategy, the wheel will finally slow down. But we soon discover a frustrating paradox. Trying to think our way out of overthinking is like trying to put out a fire with gasoline. Every new thought, every new analysis simply adds more fuel, and we find ourselves more lost than ever, caught in a maze of our own creation, where the walls are built of our own anxieties and the ceiling is heavy with our own judgments. But what if there is another way? What if the solution isn't to think harder, but to learn how to not think at all? What if the escape from the maze isn't about finding the exit, but about realizing the walls are an illusion? For centuries, the ancient wisdom of Zen masters has offered a path, not through more complex thinking, but through the profound simplicity of awareness. This journey we are about to embark on is not a religious sermon, nor is it a complicated philosophical debate. It is a practical guide, a manual for the mind, drawing on timeless teachings to address a very modern problem. It is about learning to find the off switch for the incessant mental chatter. It's about discovering that you are not the wheel. You are the one who is watching it spin. This is a path to reclaiming your inner peace, to finding the quiet space that has always existed behind the noise. It is a journey to learn how to let go, how to be present, and how to finally stop thinking so much, so you can start living more fully. To begin this journey, we must first give a name to the ceaseless activity in our heads, this uninvited guest who chatters from the moment we wake until the moment we fall into an exhausted sleep. The Zen masters of old had a wonderfully accurate and compassionate name for this phenomenon. They called it the monkey mind. It is a perfect metaphor. Picture a monkey in a tree, not a calm, Serene primate, but a restless, mischievous, and slightly drunk one. It cannot stay on one branch for more than a second. It leaps from a branch of past regret to a branch of future anxiety, swings over to a branch of a song stuck in your head, then jumps to a memory of something embarrassing you said 10 years ago, before grabbing onto a vine of your grocery list. It never stops. It is impulsive, easily distracted, and lives in a state of constant, low-grade panic. This monkey is not evil. It does not intend to cause you harm. It is simply untrained. It is driven by instinct, by the glittering fruits of distraction and the shadowy predators of fear. For most of our lives, we don't even realize this monkey exists. We believe that we are the monkey. We think its frantic, chaotic monologue is our own voice, the very core of our being. And so, when the monkey is anxious, we are anxious. When the monkey is angry, we are angry. We are dragged along on its wild, unpredictable journey through the jungle of our own consciousness. And we wonder why we are so tired, so bruised, and so utterly lost. The first, most radical step in this entire practice is simply to acknowledge this, to stand back for a moment and recognize the monkey mind for what it is: a process, a pattern of energy, but not the entirety of who you are. This is a profound shift. We are taught to believe our minds are us. I think, therefore I am, is a cornerstone of Western philosophy. But Zen offers a different perspective. Thinking is something the mind does, just as breathing is something the lungs do, and beating is something the heart does. You would never say, "I am my heartbeat." You understand that you are the being who has a beating heart. In the same way, you are the being who has a thinking mind. The thoughts themselves are not the problem. The rain is not a problem for the sky. The clouds are not a problem for the sky. The fiercest storm is not a problem for the sky. The sky is the vast, open space in which all weather happens. The practice of Zen is the practice of realizing that you are the sky, not the weather. You are the silent, spacious awareness in which the monkey mind performs its antics. The goal, therefore, is not to kill the monkey. This is perhaps the most important and liberating distinction one can make on this path. Many people approach meditation with a sense of aggression. They want to wrestle their mind into submission, to force it to be quiet, to achieve a state of perfect, blissful blankness. This approach is doomed to fail, and it only creates more tension and self-judgment. Trying to stop thoughts with more thoughts is like sending a monkey to catch a monkey. You just end up with more chaos. The true art lies not in suppression, but in observation. It is a shift in posture, from participant to witness. Imagine you are sitting on the bank of a river. The thoughts, feelings, and sensations are the water, the leaves, the sticks, all flowing by. For your entire life, you have been in the river, being carried away by the current, trying desperately to grab onto things or push other things away. The practice is to simply sit on the bank. You don't try to stop the river. You don't judge the river for flowing. You simply watch it all go by. A thought of worry appears. You notice it. Ah, worry. And you watch it float downstream. A memory of happiness appears. You notice it. Ah, a pleasant memory. And you watch it float on by. You don't jump into the river to chase the good memories. And you don't build a dam to stop the bad ones. You just sit and you watch. In this watching, something magical begins to happen. A space is created, a tiny gap at first, a sliver of silence between you, the watcher and the thought that is being watched. This space is freedom. In this space, you have a choice. When you are identified with the monkey, you have no choice. You are compelled to follow its every leap. But when you are the observer, you can see the monkey preparing to jump, and you can decide not to go with it. The thought arises, you should be worried about that presentation next week, instead of instantly being consumed by the anxiety. The observer notes, there is a thought about worrying. That's it. This simple act of non-judgmental labeling creates separation. It takes the power out of the thought. The thought is no longer a command. It's just a suggestion. It's just weather passing through the vast sky of your awareness. There is a classic Zen story that perfectly illustrates this. A dedicated student came to his master, his face etched with frustration. "Master," he pleaded, "my mind is a storm of thoughts. It gives me no peace. I beg you, please, pacify my mind for me." The old master looked at him with a calm, steady gaze and said, "Very well. Go and find this mind of yours. Search for it. Capture it and bring it here to me. Once you have brought it, I promise I will pacify it for you." The student, eager to be free of his torment, took this instruction literally. He went to his meditation spot and began to search. He looked inside his head. He saw images, words, fragments of conversations. He felt feelings in his chest, a tightness from anxiety, a warmth from a pleasant memory. He observed sensations all over his body. He chased after thoughts, trying to pin them down, to grasp this thing called mind. But every time he thought he had it, it would vanish, replaced by another thought, another sensation. He searched for hours, then for days. He looked in every corner of his being, high and low, for this solid, singular entity. My mind, finally, exhausted and humbled, he returned to the master. He bowed low and said, "Master, I have searched and searched as you commanded. I have looked everywhere, but I cannot find my mind." A gentle smile spread across the master's face. He looked at his student with great compassion and said, "There, your mind is pacified." The student's great realization, and the core of this first step, is that the mind is not a thing. It is not a noun to be captured, but a verb to be witnessed. It is a ceaseless, ownerless process. The moment you stop wrestling with it, the moment you stop trying to grab it, and instead simply look for it with gentle curiosity, its power over you dissolves. You realize it has no solid ground, nor central headquarters. It is just weather. Recognizing this is not the end of the journey, but it is the essential beginning. It is the act of turning on the light in a dark room. You may not like all the furniture you see, but at least you are no longer stumbling around, bumping into things in the dark. You have identified the uninvited guest. You have seen the monkey for what it is. The question that naturally arises next is, how do we learn to live with this guest? How do we begin to gently train this wild monkey? We don't need a cage, or a whip, or an angry voice. We need something much simpler, something quieter. We need an anchor, a steady, reliable point of focus that can hold us firm when the winds of thought begin to blow. That anchor is closer to you than your own skin. It is with you in every single moment, and it holds the key to the present. It is your breath. We have given a name to the chaos within. We have recognized the frantic, chattering monkey mind. To see it is to create a space between it and ourselves. And in that space, freedom is born. But recognition alone is not enough. The monkey is wild, and its habits are strong. It will continue to pull us back into the jungle of thought, back into the dizzying swings between yesterday and tomorrow. To stand firm, to avoid being dragged away, we need an anchor. We need something solid, something real, something that can hold us steady when the winds of anxiety and distraction begin to howl. The Zen masters teach that this perfect anchor is not something you must go out and find. It is not a secret mantra, a complex philosophy, or a physical object. It is, in fact, the most simple, intimate, and constant process of your own life. It is your breath. The power of the breath as a meditative tool lies in one profound, unshakable truth. The breath only exists in the present moment. Think about this. You cannot take a breath that happened yesterday. You can remember it, but you cannot experience it. You cannot take a breath that will happen tomorrow. You can anticipate it, but you cannot feel it. Each inhalation you take is happening right now. Each exhalation you release is happening right now. The breath is a direct, physical, undeniable tether to the reality of the present. Your thoughts, by their very nature, are almost never in the present. They are ghosts of the past or phantoms of the future. The monkey mind feasts on memory and imagination, but the breath, the gentle, rhythmic rising and falling in your own body, is a constant, faithful reporter of what is actually happening. It is the ultimate reality check. It is the tool we use to gently but firmly pull the monkey out of its imaginary worlds and bring it back to the solid ground of the here and now. The practice itself is one of sublime simplicity. It is not about breathing in a special way. It is not about forcing long, deep breaths to achieve a calm state. That can be a useful exercise, but it is not the core of this practice. The practice is about awareness. It is about letting your breath be exactly as it is and simply paying attention to it. So, right now, as you listen, you can begin. You don't need a special cushion or a silent room. Just bring your awareness to the feeling of your own breathing. You might choose to place your attention at the tip of your nostrils, feeling the subtle coolness of the air as it enters and the gentle warmth as it leaves. Or you might rest your attention on your chest, feeling the expansion on the in-breath and the softening on the out-breath. A classic Zen method is to place your attention on your lower abdomen, a few inches below the navel. Feel the belly gently rise as you breathe in and gently fall as you breathe out. There is nothing to fix, nothing to change. Your only job is to feel, to be the silent witness to this simple, life-giving rhythm. Now, here is the most important instruction of all. In a few moments, or perhaps it has already happened, your mind will wander. the monkey will see a glittering branch, and it will leap. A thought will arise. Am I doing this right? What's for dinner? I forgot to send that email. This is not a failure. This is not a mistake. This is not a sign that you are bad at meditation. In fact, this is the entire point of the practice. The moment you realize your mind has wandered, that is a moment of pure mindfulness. You have woken up, and in that moment, you have an opportunity. The practice is what you do next. You do not scold the monkey. You do not get angry or frustrated with yourself. You simply, gently, and with infinite kindness, guide your attention back to the breath. Think of it like training a small, beloved puppy. When you are teaching it to sit, and it runs off to chase a butterfly, you do not yell at it. You smile, you walk over, and you gently lead it back to its spot. That is all. Your mind wanders. You notice. You gently return to the breath. It will happen 1,000 times. Your practice, then, consists of 1,000 gentle returns. Each return is a victory. Each return is a strengthening of the muscle of attention, a deepening of your compassion for yourself. Why is this simple act so powerful? Because the breath is the bridge between your conscious mind and the vast, unconscious world of your body. It connects the world of thought to the world of feeling. When your mind is racing with anxious thoughts, your autonomic nervous system responds. Your heart rate increases, your muscles tense, and your breath becomes shallow and quick. Your body is preparing for a threat, even if that threat is purely imaginary. When you consciously bring a gentle, spacious awareness to your breath, allowing it to be natural and relaxed, you send a powerful signal back to your nervous system. The message is simple. We are safe. There is no tiger here. You can stand down. The body begins to relax, and this relaxation sends another message back to the mind. The frantic monkey, seeing that the body is calm, begins to feel that perhaps there is no danger after all. It begins to quiet down by focusing on the physical sensation of the breath. You are moving your center of gravity from the noisy, chaotic attic of your head down into the calm, solid foundation of your body. You are inhabiting your own life. Instead of just thinking about it, imagine a tightrope walker, balanced on a thin wire stretched across a vast canyon. Her life depends on her ability to stay present. If her mind wanders to the past, thinking, "Did I rig this rope correctly?" she will lose her focus and begin to sway. If her mind leaps into the future, imagining, "What if I fall? The crowd is watching," fear will overtake her, and her body will tremble. Her survival, her entire art, is based on her capacity to bring her full attention to the feeling of the rope beneath her feet, right now, and the steady, rhythmic flow of her breath, in and out, right now. For the tightrope walker, the present moment is not a philosophical concept. It is a lifeline. The breath is not just air. It is her anchor to stability in the face of profound uncertainty. We, in our daily lives, are all tightrope walkers. We are navigating the pressures of work, the complexities of relationships, the deep fears and soaring hopes that define a human life. Our overthinking mind is constantly trying to knock us off balance. The breath is our balancing pole. It is our constant, reliable method for returning to the only place where we have any real power. The only place where life is actually happening, this present moment. By anchoring ourselves to the breath, we have taken the first crucial step onto the solid ground of the now. We have tasted, perhaps only for a second or two, the inherent peace that arises when we are not lost in the labyrinth of past and future. We have discovered the tool, but why is this single moment, this ever-present now, so deeply revered by the great masters? What is the profound, liberating power hidden within its simplicity? And how can we learn to not just visit it, but to actually live there through the breath? We have discovered our anchor to the present moment. We have found a tool to gently pull the chattering monkey back from its wild swings into the past and the future, and to plant its feet, even just for a second, on the solid ground of now. But why is this so important? Why do the great spiritual traditions of the world place such a profound emphasis on this single, fleeting moment? The reason is both simple and life-altering. The present moment is the only place that life actually exists. It is the only reality you will ever experience. And conversely, almost all of our psychological suffering, our anxiety, our regret, our craving, and our worry is born from our refusal to live there. Our peace is perpetually stolen by two master thieves who operate within our own minds. One is called yesterday, and the other is called tomorrow. Yesterday arrives carrying a heavy sack filled with all our past mistakes, our regrets, our grievances, and our old wounds. It replays conversations, showing us all the clever things we should have said. It projects images of our failures, whispering that we are not good enough because of what happened back then. We engage with this thief. We listen to its stories. We argue with it, and we allow its dusty, sorrowful narrative to define who we are in this living, breathing moment. The other thief, tomorrow, is perhaps even more cunning. It operates through two primary methods. Sometimes, it taunts us with a shimmering, beautiful mirage on the horizon, a vision of future happiness. Once you get that promotion, it says, then you will be peaceful. Once you find the perfect partner, then your life will be complete. Once you retire, then you can finally relax. We spend our entire lives chasing this mirage, sacrificing the reality of today for the promise of a fantasy tomorrow, never realizing that as we approach it, the horizon simply moves further away. The other method of tomorrow is to conjure a dark, ominous storm cloud. It fills our minds with an endless parade of what-ifs. What if I get sick? What if I lose my job? What if they don't like me? We exhaust our life force battling these imaginary demons, living in a state of dread over futures that have not happened and, in all likelihood, never will in the way our anxious minds have constructed them. The great secret of Zen is to see these two thieves for what they are: illusions. Let us look at the past. Where is it? Can you go there? Can you hold it in your hand? You cannot. The past does not exist. The event that you are agonizing over is gone, vanished forever into the non-existence from which it came. What you call the past is nothing more than a memory, a pattern of neurons firing inside your brain, an electrical ghost that is appearing right now when you feel the sting of an old regret. You are not suffering from the past event itself. You are suffering from a thought that is happening in the present moment. This is a revolutionary insight, because you cannot change the past, but you can absolutely change your relationship to a thought that is happening now. Now let us look at the future. Where is that? It is even less real than the past. It is pure fantasy, a projection of the mind. It has no substance, nor reality. It is a mental construct. Anxiety, therefore, is the strange act of tormenting yourself in the present moment with something that does not exist. We are literally scaring ourselves with campfire stories. When we truly, deeply see this, the whole structure of our suffering begins to crumble. We realize we have been living as voluntary prisoners in a jail whose bars are made of memory and whose walls are made of imagination. The only escape is to return to the only place that is real, the present moment. Life is not a journey from a tangible past to a tangible future. Life is the continuous, eternal unfolding of one single moment, this one. Everything that has ever happened to you happened in the now. Everything that will ever happen to you will happen in the now. You are not moving through time. Time, as a psychological concept, is moving through you. To awaken is to step out of this illusory stream and plant your feet on the riverbank of the present. And how do we do this? When the pull of the stream is so strong, we do it by coming to our senses. Literally, your mind can travel through time at the speed of light, but your body is always, unequivocally, here. The senses are the gateways to the now. You can try this right now. What sounds are actually present in your environment? Don't just think about them. Truly hear them. The low hum of an appliance, the distant sound of traffic, the sound of your own breathing. Just listen, without judgment. Now, what do you see? Allow your eyes to rest on an object. Don't label it. Just notice its color, its shape, its texture. See the play of light and shadow upon it. See it as if you have never seen it before. And what do you feel? Feel the points of contact between your body and the surface that supports you. Feel the sensation of your feet on the floor. Feel the air on your skin. This simple act of dropping into your senses is a powerful emergency brake for the time-traveling mind. It yanks you out of the fictions of past and future and lands you squarely in the concrete reality of what is. There is a beautiful Zen story that illuminates this perfectly. A university professor, a man of great learning, came to visit a wise old Zen master. He was full of questions about the nature of reality, time, and enlightenment. Master, he asked, what is the ultimate secret of Zen? What is your profound practice? The master, who was stirring a pot of rice, looked at him and said, "It is very simple. When I am hungry, I eat. When I am tired, I sleep." The professor was insulted. "This is no secret," he scoffed. "That is what everyone does." "I do that." The master smiled gently. "No," he replied. "When you eat, you are not really eating. You are thinking of the 100 things you have to do. You are worrying about a problem at work. You are regretting something you said this morning. Your body is here, but your mind is somewhere else. When you lie down to sleep, you do not sleep. You carry your anxieties with you into your bed and wrestle with them all night. When I eat, the master said, returning his full attention to the pot of rice, I just eat. My whole being is involved in the act of eating. When I sleep, I just sleep. In that, the whole universe is present. This is the power of now. It is not about achieving some mystical, otherworldly state. It is about the simple, sacred act of being fully engaged with your life as it unfolds. It is about giving the gift of your complete presence to each moment, whether that moment involves washing the dishes, speaking with a loved one, or simply feeling your own breath. Happiness is not a destination you will arrive at tomorrow. Peace is not a reward you will receive for sorting out your past. They are the natural conditions that reveal themselves when you stop leaving the only place you can ever find them, right here. Right now. This is a beautiful and liberating truth, but it immediately raises a vital question. What happens when the present moment is not pleasant? What happens when the now is filled with difficult emotions, physical pain, or challenging circumstances? How can we possibly be fully present with that? To answer this, we must turn to one of the most crucial and often misunderstood principles in all of Zen. We must learn the profound and gentle art of letting go. We have arrived at the shore of the present moment, anchored by the rhythm of our breath. It is a place of potential peace. But as we stand here, we are confronted with a crucial question. What do we do when this present moment is filled with pain? What happens when the now is not a sunny, peaceful landscape, but a stormy sea of difficult emotions, uncomfortable sensations, or challenging thoughts? It is one thing to be present with the warmth of a cup of tea, but quite another to be present with the sting of rejection, the fire of anger, or the grey fog of grief. Our natural instinct in these moments is to do one of two things: to fight or to flee. We wrestle with the painful thought, trying to destroy it, or we desperately seek distraction, trying to escape it. Zen proposes a third option, a path of radical courage and profound release. It is the art of letting go. Let us first be very clear about what letting go is not. In our culture, which values control and relentless effort, the idea of letting go is often mistaken for weakness, apathy, or resignation. It sounds like giving up, but this is a fundamental misunderstanding. Giving up is an act of defeat. It is born from aversion and despair. It says, "This is too painful. I cannot handle it. I quit." Letting go, on the other hand, is an act of immense strength and wisdom. It is born from acceptance and clarity. It does not mean you become a passive doormat to life's challenges. It means you stop adding a second layer of suffering on top of the first. The first layer is the unavoidable pain of life itself. Things happen. People leave. Bodies ache. Plans fail. This is the nature of existence. The second layer, which is entirely optional and self-created, is our resistance to that pain. It is the clenched fist of our mind, grasping the painful event and refusing to open. Letting go is simply the act of uncurling those fingers. It is the choice to stop fighting with reality. It is to say, this is the situation, right now. This is the feeling, right now. I will not add my resistance to it. I will allow it to be here. And from that place of clear-eyed acceptance, you are infinitely more powerful and capable of taking wise and compassionate action. So what is it that we are clinging to so tightly? We cling to our expectations. We walk around with a detailed mental blueprint of how life should be. Our partner should be more considerate. Our job should be more fulfilling. The weather should be sunny. When reality inevitably presents a different picture, we suffer. The suffering comes not from reality itself, but from the gap between reality and our blueprint. Letting go is the act of putting down the blueprint and engaging with the world as it actually is, not as we demand it to be. We also cling to our identities, the stories we tell ourselves about who we are. These can be positive labels, like I am a successful person, or negative ones, like I am an anxious person. We grasp these labels because they give us a sense of solid ground, a sense of self, but they are cages. Letting go is allowing yourself to be more fluid, to be a mystery, to not be defined by the past. And most of all, we cling to our thoughts and emotions. We grab onto a worry like a dog with a bone, chewing on it for hours, refusing to let it pass. We experience a moment of joy and immediately start to fear its ending, thus poisoning the joy itself. Imagine you are sitting on the bank of a great flowing river. This river is the stream of your consciousness. The water carries with it leaves, twigs, flowers, and occasionally murky branches and stones. These are your thoughts, feelings, memories, and sensations. The practice of clinging is to see something in the river and, instead of letting it float by, you leap into the freezing water to grab it. You see a dark, heavy log, a thought of self-doubt, and you wrap your arms around it, struggling to hold it, and find yourself being dragged down the river. Exhausted and battered, then you see a beautiful, perfect flower, a moment of praise or pleasure, and you grab that too, desperately trying to keep it, only to feel its petals crush and wither in your desperate grasp as the river relentlessly moves on. The art of letting go is the practice of simply staying on the bank. You remain on the solid ground of your own awareness. You see the dark log appear on the surface of the water. You acknowledge it. You note. There is self-doubt, and you watch as the current carries it away. You see the beautiful flower. You admire its beauty without needing to possess it. You whisper, "What a lovely moment of joy." And you watch as it, too, floats on by. You are the silent, spacious witness to the entire river, not a victim of its currents. The most famous story illustrating this principle is that of two Zen monks on a long pilgrimage. One was a senior monk, wise and serene. The other was a young novice, earnest and rigid in his practice. They came to a wide, muddy river. A young woman in fine silk robes stood at the bank, looking distressed. She was afraid to cross for fear of ruining her clothes and being swept away by the current. Upon seeing her plight, the senior monk, without a word, walked over, lifted her into his arms, carried her across the Eta River, and gently set her down on the other side. He then continued on his way. The young monk was aghast. He followed his master, his mind in a turmoil. For hours, he walked in fuming silence. He replayed the scene over and over, his indignation growing with every step. How could his master do such a thing? They were monks. They had taken strict vows never to touch a woman. It was an outrageous violation. Finally, unable to bear it any longer, he burst out, "Master, I must speak. What you did back there was disgraceful. How could you break your sacred vows and touch that woman?" The old monk turned to him, a look of genuine surprise on his face. "Oh," he said softly, "you mean the woman at the river? I put her down on the other side hours ago. Why are you still carrying her?" This story strikes us so powerfully because we are all that young monk. We carry insults, grievances, worries, and fears for hours, days, weeks, even years after the event has passed. We allow the burdens of yesterday to poison the present moment. Letting go is the act of putting the woman down. It is the recognition that the only person being harmed by your clinging is you. It is a profound act of self-compassion. When you let go, you are not losing anything. You are gaining everything. You are gaining the freedom of an open hand. You are creating space when your mind is not cluttered with old baggage, when your heart is not weighed down by ancient resentments. A natural lightness and clarity can emerge. There is room for peace to enter. There is room for creativity and joy to blossom. We have now seen the restlessness of our minds, anchored ourselves in the reality of the present, and learned the liberating art of letting go. These are the foundational practices. But now, Zen invites us to take an even more radical step, to look not just at the stream of thoughts, but at the very substance of thought itself. It asks us to investigate its true nature, and in doing so, to discover a freedom so profound it can change everything. This is the wisdom of what the masters call emptiness. We have journeyed to the present moment, our breath as our guide. We have learned the courageous art of letting go, of allowing the river of experience to flow without being swept away by it. Now, we arrive at a viewpoint that is at the very heart of Zen wisdom. It is a perspective so profound that it has the power to dismantle our suffering at its root. To approach it, we must be willing to question our most basic assumption about reality. We are going to investigate the nature of our thoughts themselves. This is the teaching of what is called emptiness, or in Sanskrit, shunyata. This word can sound intimidating, even frightening. It can conjure images of a cold, black void, of nothingness, of nihilism. But this is a complete misunderstanding. In Zen, emptiness is not a void. It is a vibrant, pulsating potentiality. It is not the absence of everything, but the absence of a separate, solid, independent self in anything. And understanding this is the key to unlocking an unshakable freedom. Let's begin with something simple. Look at your hand. What is it? It is flesh and bone and blood. But that flesh and bone came from the food you ate. That food came from the sun, the earth, and the rain. Your hand was formed in your mother's womb. It is connected to your arm, which is connected to your body. Your existence depends on the air you breathe, which is produced by trees. If we start to remove all the things that are not hand, if we take away the sun, the food, the earth, your parents, the air, at what point does the hand cease to be a hand? You will find that there is no solid, independent handness dwelling within it. Your hand is empty of a separate self. It is a temporary, miraculous coming together of the entire universe. It is interconnected with everything. Now, let us apply this same fearless investigation to a thought. A thought of worry arises in your mind. I might fail at this task. It feels incredibly solid, personal, and real. It feels like you, but let us look closer. What is this thought made of? It is made of words. Where did those words come from? You learned them from your parents, your teachers, your culture. The concept of failure itself is something you were taught to fear. The worry might be triggered by a memory of a past event or a projection into a future one. The feeling of anxiety associated with it is a biochemical reaction in your body. If you take away your language, your culture, the memory, the projection, where is the thought? Where is its solid core? You will find that it has none. A thought is a ghost. It is a ripple in consciousness, made up entirely of non-thought elements. It is empty of any inherent, solid, personal reality. It is not yours. It is simply an event happening in the vast field of awareness. This is where Zen's most beautiful metaphor comes to our aid. You are not the clouds. You are the sky. Imagine, for a moment, that your true nature, your fundamental consciousness, is a vast, open, boundless sky. It is luminous, clear, and inherently peaceful. It has always been here and will always be here. Your thoughts, emotions, and sensations of the weather, they are the clouds that drift through the sky. Some days, there are light, fluffy, white clouds of happy memories and pleasant daydreams. On other days, there are dark, heavy, turbulent storm clouds of anger, fear, or grief. The winds of circumstance blow them into your awareness. They linger for a while, and then they drift away, dissolving back into the emptiness from which they arose. Now, ask yourself these crucial questions. When a dark storm cloud passes through the sky, does it damage the sky? Does it leave a permanent stain or a scar? Does the sky become the storm cloud? Of course not. The sky remains untouched, unstained. Its vast, peaceful nature completely unchanged by the temporary weather passing through it. Our fundamental error, the source of our suffering, is that we believe we are the clouds. When a cloud of sadness appears, we point to it and say, "I am sad." We shrink our entire identity down to the size of that temporary weather pattern. When a cloud of anger appears, we say, "I am an angry person." We become the storm, The liberation of seeing emptiness is the realization that you were never the cloud. You are, and have always been, the sky. This doesn't mean the clouds will stop coming. Life will always have its weather, but your relationship to it is fundamentally transformed. You no longer fear the clouds. You are no longer battered and tossed about by them. You can rest in your sky-like nature and watch the weather of your mind come and go with a sense of spaciousness, curiosity, and even compassion. So how do we practice this? One of the most effective techniques is simple labeling. When a strong thought or emotion arises, instead of being immediately swept away by its story, you create a little space by gently applying a mental label. A wave of anxiety washes over you. Instead of drowning in it, you take a mental step back and note, worry is present. Or simply, worrying, a harsh, critical thought about yourself appears. You note, judging mind, or there is the inner critic. This is not an intellectual analysis. It is an act of disidentification. The label acts like a gentle hand that separates you, the sky, from the cloud. It acknowledges the presence of the thought without agreeing with its content. It changes the thought from being a personal command. You are a failure to being an impersonal event. A thought of failure is occurring. In that tiny space, the thought loses its power. It can no longer define you. It's just a cloud, and you can let it drift by. This profound insight into emptiness is the very essence of the famous Heart Sutra. In this scripture, the great being of compassion, Avalokiteshvara, looks deeply into the nature of his own being and sees that his body, his feelings, his perceptions, his thoughts, and his consciousness are all empty of any separate self. And the sutra declares that in realizing this, he was freed from all suffering. The scripture ends with a celebrated mantra gate. Gate, Paragate, Parasar Gate, Bodhisvaha. A beautiful, poetic translation could be gone. Gone beyond, completely gone beyond, to the other shore of awakening. So be it. This is not a magic spell to ward off thoughts. It is a joyful declaration of the journey itself. It is the journey of going beyond our identification with the clouds of our own minds, crossing the river of suffering, and arriving on the other shore, the shore of liberation, where we see reality as it is interconnected, impermanent, and luminously empty. When you truly see that a thought is empty, it can no longer harm you, any more than a cloud can harm the sky. It arises, it does its dance, and it dissolves, and what remains is you, the vast, peaceful, open sky of awareness. This is a radical shift in perception. It is like learning to see in a whole new dimension. But our old habits of clinging and identifying are strong. To help us maintain this newfound clarity as we navigate our daily lives, to keep our vision from becoming clouded over again, we need to cultivate a certain quality of mind. It is a mind that is open, curious, and free from the arrogance of its own conclusions. It is the fresh, vital perspective that Zen masters call Shoshin, the beginner's mind. We have peered into the nature of thought itself and discovered its profound emptiness. we have realized that we are not the fleeting clouds, but the vast, unchanging sky. This insight is like wiping a dirty window clean, allowing the clear light of reality to shine through. But the habits of the mind are persistent. No sooner have we cleaned the window than we begin to draw on it with our old conclusions, our judgments, our certainties. We tell ourselves, "I know what this is," and the window becomes cloudy once more. To keep this window of perception clear, to prevent ourselves from falling back into the trap of our own conclusions, we must cultivate a very special attitude. It is perhaps the most cherished quality of mind in all of Zen. It is called Shoshin, which translates as beginner's mind. The great Zen master Shunryu Suzuki famously said, "In the beginner's mind there are many possibilities, but in the expert's there are few." This single sentence contains a universe of wisdom. Let us first consider the expert mind. This is the mind we have been conditioned to value. It is the mind that knows, that has experience, that has already figured things out. It is efficient, but it is also a cage. The expert mind looks at a sunset, and because it has seen 1,000 sunsets before, it quickly labels it sunset, files it away, and moves on to thinking about dinner. It has not truly seen the unique, unrepeatable majesty of this sunset. The expert mind listens to a loved one and thinks, "I know what they're going to say," and so it stops listening, instead preparing its own response. It encounters a challenge and immediately concludes, "I am not good at this," closing the door on any possibility of growth. The expert mind is a closed loop. It is a room filled with old furniture, with no space for anything new to enter. It is the source of boredom, cynicism, and the feeling that life has become stale and repetitive. It is the mind that believes it has arrived, and in doing so, has stopped traveling altogether. Beginner's mind is the antidote to this. It is the mind of a small child stepping into a garden for the very first time. To the child, every flower is a miracle. Every insect is a source of fascination. There are no labels, nor categories, no judgments of good or bad. There is only a direct, unfiltered, awe-filled experience of what is. The child does not know what anything is for. The child is simply present with what is. Shoshin is the practice of returning to this state of open, curious, not knowing. It is not a state of ignorance, but a state of profound intelligence and humility. It is the willingness to drop our stories, our preconceptions, and our certainties, and to meet each moment as if it were the first and only moment in existence. It is the courage to say the three most liberating words in any spiritual practice: "I don't know." When you don't know, anything is possible. When you think you know, the possibilities have already been narrowed to the confines of your past. This practice has a revolutionary effect on how we relate to our own overthinking. Let us revisit our inner world. The expert mind sees a familiar, anxious thought arise and immediately reacts. "Oh, not this again. This is my anxiety. It always ruins everything. I hate this feeling. I have to get rid of it." In this reaction, we have taken a simple, transient cloud of thought and by adding layers of history, judgment, and resistance. We have turned it into a solid, terrifying monster. Now, consider the approach of beginner's mind. The same anxious thought arises, but instead of meeting it with the old, tired story, you meet it with fresh curiosity. Hello. What is this? This is the energy my mind calls anxiety. Where do I feel it in my body right now? Is it a tightness in the chest? A vibration in the stomach? What is the pure sensation of it? Before I add the label bad, can you see the difference? You are no longer fighting the thought. You are exploring it. You are treating it not as a familiar enemy, but as a new and interesting landscape. This curious, non-judgmental attention is deeply transformative. An enemy cannot survive under the gentle, curious gaze of a beginner. The thought's power comes from our habitual, expert reaction to it. When we withdraw that reaction, the thought often dissolves on its own, like a ghost exposed to the light of day. There is a legendary Zen story that perfectly encapsulates the necessity of Shoshin, a famous university professor, a man renowned for his deep knowledge of philosophy and religion, traveled to visit a Zen master to learn about Zen. From the moment he arrived, the professor spoke endlessly. Showing off his vast learning, he quoted scriptures, debated complex doctrines, and explained his own intricate theories about the nature of enlightenment. The Zen master listened patiently, nodding quietly, and then said, "You must be thirsty after your long journey. Let us have some tea." The master brought out a beautiful porcelain cup and began to pour. He filled the professor's cup to the brim, and then he kept pouring. The tea spilled out of the cup, ran over the saucer, and began to pool on the table. The professor, watching in horror, finally cried out, "Stop! Can't you see the cup is already full? No more will go in." The Zen master stopped pouring, looked calmly at the professor, and said, "Like this cup, you are full of your own opinions and speculations. How can I show you Zen unless you first empty your cup? We are all this professor. Our cups are overflowing with what we think we know about ourselves, about others, and about the world. We are so full of our conclusions that there is no room for the truth of the present moment to enter." Beginner's mind is the continuous, moment-by-moment act of emptying our cup. It is a practice we can apply to every aspect of our lives. Drink your morning coffee as if you have never tasted it before. What are its true aromas? Its complex flavors? Listen to the person you love most as if you have no idea what they are going to say next. Hear their words, not your interpretation of their words. Walk outside and look at the sky as if you are a being from another world who has never witnessed such a phenomenon. See the infinite shades of blue, the architecture of the clouds. This is not a game of make-believe. It is a way of peeling back the film of habit and routine that dulls our perception, and experiencing the raw, vibrant, astonishing reality that is always here, waiting for us beneath our thoughts about it. With this fresh, open, and curious beginner's mind, we are now ready to approach one of the most sublime and dynamic states described in Zen. It is a state where the thinking mind falls silent, where the doer and the deed become one, and where action flows with an effortless, intuitive grace. This is the profound state of Mushin, the mind of no mind. Having journeyed into the open sky of emptiness and adopted the fresh eyes of a beginner's mind, we are now prepared to explore one of the most dynamic and profound states of consciousness described in Zen. It is a state that goes beyond merely observing our thoughts. It is a state where the thinker disappears altogether, and action flows with a grace and precision that the conscious mind can only marvel at. This is the state of Mushin, a Japanese term that translates as no mind, or mind without mind. This concept can seem paradoxical, even impossible. A mind without a mind. It might suggest a state of blankness, of being an unthinking automaton, but the reality is the exact opposite. Mushin is not an absence of awareness. It is the presence of an awareness so total, so unified, that the friction of self-conscious thought simply dissolves. Let us be clear about which mind is absent in no mind. The mind that vanishes is the small, hesitant, interfering mind. It is the inner commentator, the ego, who stands over your shoulder, constantly judging, questioning, and second-guessing. It's the voice that says, "Are you sure that's the right move? What will they think of you? Be careful. Don't mess this up. You should have done it the other way." This chattering, self-conscious mind creates a tiny but crucial delay, a moment of friction between intention and action. It is a state of being divided against oneself. Mushin is the state of perfect unity. The inner critic goes silent. The separation between you, the doer, and the thing being done collapses, aktionorises spontaneously, intuitively, and perfectly from the depths of your being, without the clumsy interference of conscious deliberation. To understand this in a modern context, we can look to the psychological concept known as the flow state. Athletes in any sport know this experience intimately. They call it being in the zone. It is the tennis player who is no longer deciding where to hit the ball. Her body, honed by thousands of hours of practice, simply knows. Time seems to warp. The roaring crowd fades into a distant hum, and there is only the seamless, fluid dance of the player, the racket, and the ball. It is the jazz musician on stage, lost in an improvisation. He is not thinking about scales or chords. His fingers are not following instructions from his brain. The music is simply flowing through him, each note a perfect, spontaneous expression of the moment. The thinking mind, with its rigid rules and fears, has stepped aside, and a deeper, more intuitive intelligence has taken over. The artist, the surgeon, the writer, the rock climber all have touched this state of grace, where the self is forgotten and only the pure, fluid action remains. Herein lies a great paradox. This state of no mind is not achieved by trying to have no mind. Trying to stop thinking is just another layer of thought, another effort of the ego. You cannot force your way into Mushin. Rather, Mushin is the natural fruit of deep and dedicated practice. It is the result of absorbing the fundamentals of a skill so completely that they become a part of your very nervous system. The pianist practices her scales for years. not so she can think about them in a performance, but precisely so she doesn't have to think about them. The swordsman practices his forms 10,000 times, so that in a real confrontation, the body can react with lightning speed, unhindered by the slow, hesitant mind. The practice carves a deep channel in the bedrock of your being, and when the moment of action arrives, the river of intuitive wisdom flows through that channel, powerful and unobstructed. The conscious mind has done its work in the practice hall. Now it can step back and trust the profound intelligence of the body and spirit. There is a magnificent ancient story from the Taoist sage Zhuangzi that Zen masters have long used to illustrate this principle. It is the story of Cook Ding, the personal butcher for Prince Wen Hui. The prince was watching Cook Ding carve an ox carcass, and he was utterly mesmerized. The cook's knife seemed to have a life of its own. It didn't hack or chop. It glided. It whispered through the joints, with a flick of the wrist here, a soft turn there. The entire animal fell apart with an effortless grace, like a clod of dry earth crumbling to the ground. Astonished, the prince summoned his cook and said, "I am amazed. Your skill is unbelievable. How have you achieved this?" Cook Ding wiped his blade and replied, "What I care about is the way which goes beyond mere skill. When I first began to cut up oxen, all I could see was the ox itself. After 3 years, I no longer saw the whole ox, and now I meet it with my spirit and don't look with my eyes. My senses come to a halt and my spirit is free to move where it wants. I follow the natural contours, my blade gliding through the great hollows, entering the large openings, and I never touch the smallest ligament or tendon, let alone a major bone." The prince asked him how his knife remained so sharp after so many years. The cook replied, "A good cook changes his knife once a year because he cuts. A mediocre cook changes his knife once a month because he hacks. I have had this knife for 19 years, and its edge is as keen as if it just came from the whetstone. There are spaces within the joints, and the blade of the knife has no thickness. If you insert what has no thickness into what has space, there is plenty of room to move about. That is why my blade is still so sharp." This is a perfect description of Mushin. Cook Ding has transcended mere technique. He is no longer imposing his will upon the ox. He is in harmony with its nature. His spirit perceives the empty spaces, the path of least resistance, and he simply follows it. There is no struggle, no hesitation, no thought, only the seamless flow of spirit. Knife and ox. This seemingly lofty state is not reserved only for Zen masters and legendary artisans. We all have moments where we touch this state in our everyday lives. It is there in the experienced driver, effortlessly navigating busy traffic, making 1,000 micro-adjustments without a single conscious thought. It is there, in a heartfelt conversation with a friend, where the right words of comfort and understanding arise spontaneously, without calculation. It is there in the simple act of walking down the street, where the body's intelligence handles the complex mechanics of balance and motion, freeing the mind to simply experience the journey, the state of no mind, of effortless flow. Might seem like the ultimate goal of practice, a peak experience to be treasured. But the deepest spirit of Zen lies in its ability to democratize the sacred, to find the potential for this profound presence, not just in moments of high drama or expert performance, but in the most humble, mundane, and overlooked corners of our existence. How, then, do we find this state of grace when we are not improvising a jazz solo or facing a formidable opponent, but are simply faced with a sink full of dirty dishes? We have touched upon the state of mushin, or no mind, that sublime experience of effortless flow where the self-conscious thinker dissolves and action becomes pure. Intuitive grace. It is easy to associate such a state with peak performers, the master musician, the elite athlete, the legendary artisan. We place it on a pedestal, viewing it as something rare and extraordinary, far removed from the repetitive grind of our own daily lives. We create a clean separation in our minds. There is our 10 or 20 minutes of meditation time on a cushion, a sacred island of peace. And then there is the other 23.5 hours of real life. A chaotic ocean of emails, traffic jams, chores, and obligations. The profound, liberating truth of everyday Zen is that this separation is a complete illusion. The real meditation hall, the true dojo where our practice is tested and forged, is not the quiet cushion. It is the noisy, messy, beautiful, and challenging landscape of our ordinary life. The great Zen master Thich Nhat Hanh gave us a teaching so simple and yet so deep that it can be considered a complete spiritual path in itself. He spoke of washing the dishes. He said that while you are washing the dishes, you should only be washing the dishes. This sounds almost laughably simple, yet how many of us actually do it? For most of us, washing the dishes is a mindless chore, a task to be rushed through so we can get to the next thing. The important thing, like watching television or checking our social media, while our hands are in the water, our minds are a million miles away. We are replaying a stressful conversation from work. We are worrying about a bill that is due. We are planning tomorrow's schedule. Our body is in the kitchen, but our consciousness is lost in the ghosts of the past or the phantoms of the future. We are not truly alive for that experience. To wash the dishes in the spirit of Zen is to transform a chore into a sacred ritual. It is to bring your entire being to that small sink. You are not washing the dishes in order to have clean dishes. You are washing the dishes in order to be fully alive during the time you are washing the dishes. You feel the warmth of the water on your skin. You notice the smooth, slippery texture of the soap. You see the iridescent colors shimmering in the bubbles. You hear the sound of the sponge scrubbing a plate. You pay attention to the movements of your hands. You are fully present with each cup, each bowl, each fork. In these few moments, there is no past to regret and no future to worry about. There is only the warm water, the clean scent of soap, and the simple act of washing. In that presence, the act of washing dishes becomes as profound and as holy as any formal prayer. It is a meditation in action. This same principle can be extended to every single moment of your day, dissolving the artificial wall between practice and life. When you walk from your car to your office, you can be lost in a fog of anxious thoughts. Or you can practice mindful walking. Feel the solid ground beneath your feet with each step. Notice the rhythm of your own body moving through space. Feel the sensation of the air on your face. Each step is no longer just a means to get somewhere else. Each step is an arrival in the present moment. When you eat a meal, you can scroll through your phone and barely taste your food. Or you can practice mindful eating. Turn off the screens. Look at the food on your plate. See the vibrant colors and the different textures. Before you take the first bite, take a moment to consider all the elements that came together to create this meal. The sun, the rain, the earth, the farmer, the truck driver, the grocer. Then, have slowly, truly taste each bite. You will discover that a simple meal eaten with full attention can be a more satisfying and joyful experience than a gourmet feast eaten in distraction. Even an activity as frustrating as driving in traffic can become a practice. Instead of fuming with impatience, use it as an opportunity. Feel the sensation of your hands on the steering wheel. Notice the tension in your shoulders and consciously release it. Use the red light not as a source of frustration, but as a bell of mindfulness, a reminder to come back to your breath. Breathe in, breathe out. You are not escaping the traffic jam. You are choosing to be present and peaceful right in the middle of it. The secret of everyday Zen is this: there are no mundane activities. There are only mundane states of mind. Any action, no matter how repetitive or seemingly insignificant, becomes sacred when it is infused with the light of your full awareness. A young monk once asked an old Zen master, "Venerable sir, tell me, what did you do before you became enlightened?" The master thought for a moment and replied, "I chopped wood and I carried water." The young monk, excited, then asked, "And now, after you have attained enlightenment, what do you do?" The master smiled and said, "I chop wood and I carry water." The student was confused, but the lesson is profound. The external activities of the master's life did not change. He did not suddenly levitate or stop performing his daily chores. The transformation was entirely internal. Before his awakening, he chopped wood while his mind was elsewhere, dreaming of the day he would be enlightened, resenting the hard labor. He carried the heavy water buckets while his mind was filled with complaint and distraction. After his awakening, when he chops wood, he is nothing but the act of chopping wood. His mind, his body, and the axe are one. When he carries water, he is fully present with the weight of the buckets, the feeling in his shoulders, the path beneath his feet. He found enlightenment not by escaping his life, but by finally showing up for it completely. This is the path we are invited to walk. Our lives are not made up of grand, dramatic moments, but of an endless succession of small, ordinary ones. The quest to stop overthinking is won not in a single, heroic battle, but in the 1,000 daily moments where we choose to wash the dishes, to feel our feet on the ground, to truly taste our food. This practice of finding stillness in action creates a powerful foundation for a calm and stable mind. It prepares us. But life, as we know, is not always as predictable as a household chore. Sometimes, the weather of the mind is not just a light drizzle of thoughts, but a raging hurricane. Great emotional storms of anger, fear, and grief can arise, and threaten to capsize us. How do we apply this same quality of presence when the present moment is not just neutral, but intensely, overwhelmingly painful? How do we sit with a storm without being destroyed by it? We have explored the path of finding presence in the quiet flow of our daily lives, transforming mundane chores into sacred rituals. This practice builds a strong foundation, a stable ground upon which we can stand. But the ground is not always solid. Life, in its immense and unpredictable nature, will inevitably bring storms. These are not the gentle rains of passing thoughts, but the fierce, internal hurricanes of powerful emotions, a sudden surge of rage, a chilling wave of fear, a deep, heavy fog of grief. In these moments, our instinct, conditioned by a lifetime of avoidance, is to declare war on ourselves. We try to suppress the feeling, to push it down into the basement of our consciousness, locking the door and pretending it isn't there. Or we do the opposite. We become completely possessed by the emotion, allowing it to erupt out of us in a torrent of harsh words and regrettable actions. Both strategies are forms of violence, and both are doomed to fail. Suppressing an emotion is like holding a beach ball underwater. It takes immense, constant effort. The moment your attention wavers, the ball bursts to the surface with even greater force, often at an unexpected and inappropriate time. This inner struggle depletes our energy and can manifest as chronic anxiety, depression, and even physical illness. Uncontrolled expression, on the other hand, may offer a momentary feeling of release, but it is like throwing gasoline on a fire. It reinforces the neural pathways of that emotion, making it more likely to arise in the future. It damages our relationships and leaves a wake of regret. Zen offers a third path, one that requires not aggression, but courage, not resistance, but a radical tenderness. It is the path of mindful acknowledgement. It is the practice of learning how to welcome our most unwanted guests. To begin, we must fundamentally reframe our understanding of what an emotion is. We have been taught to categorize them as positive or negative. Joy, love, and excitement are good. Anger, fear, and sadness are bad. We spend our lives chasing the former and running from the latter. But in Zen, emotions are not seen as good or bad. They are seen as intelligent energy. They are messengers, carrying vital information from the deeper parts of our being. Anger is a messenger that often arrives to tell you that a boundary has been violated or that an injustice is occurring. Its message is not destroy, but pay attention. Something needs to be protected. Fear is a messenger that warns of a potential threat, either real or imagined. Its message is not panic, but be cautious. Be aware. Sadness is a messenger that arrives when you have lost something you cherish. Its message is not, you are broken, but this mattered to you. Take time to grieve, to heal. The problem is not the messenger. The problem is that we don't know how to receive the message. We either shoot the messenger the moment it arrives, suppression, or we allow the messenger to take over the house and burn it down. Uncontrolled expression. The practice of mindfulness is to learn how to open the door, greet the messenger respectfully, listen to its message, and then allow it to leave when its work is done. The Vietnamese Zen master Thich Nhat Hanh offers a beautiful metaphor for this practice. He suggests that when a difficult emotion like anger arises, we should treat it as an honored but unexpected guest. We invite it in for tea. Imagine a wave of intense anger suddenly arises within you. Your first step is simply to acknowledge its presence. Without judgment, you can say to yourself, silently and gently, "Ah, hello anger. I see that you are here. Welcome." This simple act of naming and welcoming is revolutionary. You are no longer fighting it. You have already shifted from a state of war to a state of hospitality. The second step is to invite it to sit with you. You create a space for it in your awareness. This is the act of pouring the tea. It is a mental posture of allowing the feeling to just be, without needing it to go away. You drop the internal struggle. Now comes the most crucial part. You listen to your guest, but not with the chattering, storytelling mind. The story the anger is screaming, "He was so wrong. This is unfair. I can't believe this happened," is just the monkey mind adding fuel to the fire. To listen in a Zen way is to listen with your body. Where is this anger living physically? Is it a burning sensation in your chest, a tightening in your jaw and fists, a hot pressure behind your eyes, a churning knot in your stomach? Drop the story and bring your full, curious attention to the raw, physical sensations of the emotion. Just feel its pure energy. Without the narrative, this act grounds you in reality and untangles you from the runaway train of thought. As you sit with these physical sensations, you can gently direct your breath toward them. Imagine you could breathe into the tightness in your chest, not to force it away, but to cradle it with a gentle, spacious awareness. You are tending to your own pain. You are being your own compassionate friend. You sit with your guest in this way, offering it your quiet, non-judgmental presence, and you will find that a guest who is fully seen, heard, and acknowledged does not need to shout. It does not need to break the furniture. After its message has been received, it will, in its own time, finish its tea, stand up, and show itself to the door. This practice of meeting difficult energy with compassionate presence is embodied in the story of the Buddha and the terrifying murderer, Angulimala. Angulimala was a fearsome bandit who terrorized the countryside, killing his victims and wearing a necklace made from their fingers. Everyone fled from him in terror. One day, the Buddha began walking calmly and mindfully down the road that led into Angulimala's territory. The villagers warned him, but the Buddha continued on. Soon, Angulimala saw him and was enraged by his audacity. He grabbed his sword and began to run after the Buddha. But a strange thing happened. Though the Buddha was only walking at a normal pace, Angulimala, running with all his might, could not catch up to him. Exhausted and bewildered, he screamed, "Stop!" Monk stopped the Buddha, still walking calmly, turned his head slightly and replied, "I have stopped, Angulimala. It is you who have not stopped." Angulimala was confused. "What do you mean you are still walking? Yet you say you have stopped. I am standing still. Yet you say I have not." The Buddha then explained, "I have stopped forever from creating violence and causing harm to living beings. You have not. That is why I have stopped, and you have not. In that moment, faced with the Buddha's complete lack of fear and his overwhelming, unshakable compassion, the entire structure of Angulimala's rage and delusion collapsed. He threw down his sword and became a follower of the Buddha. This is how we must learn to meet the Angulimala within ourselves, our own terrifying rage, our own paralyzing fear. We do not meet it with more violence, more resistance, or more fear. We meet it with the steady, courageous, and compassionate presence of our own awareness. We stop running, we turn around, and we offer it tea. Learning to host these difficult guests within our own being is a profound act of self-love and the cornerstone of inner peace. But very often, these powerful emotions are not triggered in solitude. They arise in the dynamic, complex, and often challenging arena of our interactions with other people. How do we maintain this compassionate presence when we are faced with the difficult people in our lives? How do we navigate the intricate world of relationships, which so often act as perfect mirrors for our own unresolved pain? We have begun the courageous work of turning inward, of learning to sit with the difficult guests of our own emotions and offering them our compassionate presence. This practice cultivates a garden of peace within us. Yet, no garden is an island. We live in a world of others, and it is in the rich, fertile, and often volatile soil of our relationships that the seeds of our strongest emotions are often sown. A single word from a partner, a perceived slight from a friend, a demand from a family member, and suddenly, the difficult guests of anger, fear, and resentment are not just knocking at the door. They are storming the house. Our most common and most painful mistake is to believe that these other people are the source of our suffering. We see them as the problem to be solved, and so we embark on a lifelong, exhausting project of trying to fix, change, manage, or control the people around us, hoping that if we can just get them to behave in the way we want, we will finally have peace. This project is doomed from the start. It is the source of endless conflict, frustration, and heartache. Zen offers a completely different paradigm. It suggests that our relationships are not a problem to be solved, but a mirror to be looked into. The people in our lives, especially those who trigger us the most, are not our tormentors. They are our most valuable, if unwitting, teachers. They are mirrors reflecting back to us the parts of ourselves that we have not yet healed, the unconscious patterns we are still running, and the attachments we have not yet released. When someone's behavior ignites a disproportionately strong emotional reaction in you, it is a precious opportunity for self-inquiry. The intensity of your reaction is a signal. The other person's action is merely the stimulus, the light that hits the mirror. But the image you see, the hot flare of anger or the cold pang of insecurity, is your own reflection. If you find yourself infuriated by someone's arrogance, the mirror might be asking you to look at your own hidden feelings of superiority, or perhaps your deep-seated insecurities about your own worth. If you are constantly irritated by a friend's perceived laziness, the mirror may be reflecting your own harsh inner critic, the part of you that believes your value is dependent on your productivity. If a partner's need for closeness feels suffocating, the mirror may be showing you your own fear of intimacy, your terror of losing yourself in another. The question, in the Zen approach, always turns from the accusatory, "Why are you like this?" to the profoundly insightful, "Why is this bothering me so much? What part of myself is being revealed in this moment?" This shift from blame to self-inquiry is the beginning of true wisdom and the end of relationship as a battlefield. It is not about letting people treat you poorly. Boundaries are still essential. It is about understanding that your emotional reaction is your own work to do. From this understanding, two foundational practices of mindful relationship emerge: deep listening and loving speech. First, let us consider deep listening. Most of the time, we are not truly listening. We are hearing words while we formulate our rebuttal. We are waiting for our turn to speak. We are judging what is being said, or we are only half present. Our minds distracted by other things. Deep listening, or compassionate listening, is the practice of offering another person the greatest gift we can give them: our full, non-judgmental, undivided presence. You listen not to reply, but to understand. You listen with your whole body, your whole being. You listen for the feeling behind the words. You set aside your own opinions and agendas and create a safe space for the other person to express themselves fully. You might be amazed at what happens when someone feels truly seen and heard for the first time, perhaps in a very long time. Conflict dissolve. Defensiveness melts away, and true connection becomes possible. The partner to deep listening is loving speech. This is the practice of speaking truth with kindness. It is speech that is motivated by a desire to connect and heal, not to win an argument or to inflict a wound. Before speaking, especially in a moment of conflict, we can ask ourselves 3 questions. Is what I am about to say true? Is it necessary? And is it kind? If it doesn't pass through all 3 of these gates, it is often better to remain silent. Loving speech also means taking responsibility for our own feelings. Instead of accusatory statements that begin with "you always" or "you never," which immediately put the other person on the defensive, we learn to speak from our own experience using I statements. When this happens, "I feel hurt" is an honest expression of your inner world. "You are trying to hurt me" is an assumption about theirs. Loving speech is a conscious choice to use our words not as weapons, but as instruments of healing and understanding. There is a simple story that illustrates the effect our own inner state has on our relationships. A man with a perpetually foul temper went to a Zen master and complained that he was surrounded by fools and villains who made him angry all day long. The master listened and then handed him a large, dusty bag filled with charcoal. "I want you to do something for me." The master said, "For the rest of the day, I want you to carry this bag with you. Every time you feel anger or resentment towards someone, I want you to take a piece of charcoal and throw it at them." The man was delighted by this idea and spent the rest of the day furiously hurling pieces of charcoal at anyone who crossed him. He didn't manage to hit very many people, but he threw with great vigor. At sunset, exhausted and satisfied, he returned to the master. The master took one look at him and said, "Now, look at yourself." The man looked down at his hands, his clothes, and his face in a reflection He was covered from head to toe in black soot and grime. The master said gently, "You see, whether you managed to hit anyone else or not, the one person who was guaranteed to get dirty from carrying and throwing all that anger was you. In our relationships, when we carry around resentment, judgment, and the desire to blame, we are the ones who suffer most. We are the ones covered in the soot of our own negativity. The ultimate freedom in relationships comes from letting go of the project of trying to change other people. You come to the profound realization that the only person you have any real power over is yourself. The greatest gift you can bring to any relationship with a partner, a child, a parent, or a friend is your own inner peace, your own self-awareness, your own practice. When you stop needing other people to be a certain way for you to be happy, you are free to love them exactly as they are. And strangely, when people feel accepted and not constantly managed, they are often more likely to change in positive ways on their own. This practice of seeing ourselves in the mirror of relationship can bring a deep and lasting peace to our personal lives. But we spend a vast portion of our waking hours in another complex and demanding arena, one filled with its own unique pressures, ambitions, and definitions of worth. How do we bring this same Zen mind into the marketplace? Into the world of our work? We have explored the inner landscape of our emotions and the intricate mirrors of our relationships. Now, we turn our attention outward to an arena that, for many of us, is the single greatest source of overthinking, stress, and anxiety in the modern world, the marketplace. This is the world of our work, our careers, our ambitions. It is a world of deadlines, of competition, of performance reviews, and of the relentless pressure to prove our worth. It is where the chattering monkey mind often screams the loudest, comparing us to others, worrying about the future, and replaying past mistakes. A common question naturally arises: how can I possibly practice Zen in this high-pressure environment? Do I have to abandon my ambition, keep my demanding job, and retreat from the world to find peace? The answer from Zen is a clear and resounding no. The marketplace is not an obstacle to your practice. It is the very heart of your practice. The goal is not to escape the world, but to learn to engage with it with a new mind. A mind of clarity, integrity, and peace. The core of this practice lies in understanding the crucial difference between healthy striving and toxic clinging. On the surface, they can look very similar. Both involve setting goals, working hard, and desiring a positive result. But their inner motivations, their core energies, are worlds apart, and they lead to vastly different outcomes for our mental well-being. Toxic clinging, which is the default mode for most of modern ambition, is born from fear and ego. Its fuel is the fear of being seen as a failure, the fear of not having enough, the fear of being insignificant. Its goal is external validation, the promotion, the raise, the corner office, the praise from a superior. When you operate from this place, your entire sense of self-worth is fused with the outcome. The work itself is often just a means to an end, a stressful hurdle to be overcome. If you succeed, you experience a brief, fleeting high, which quickly gives way to anxiety about the next goal. If you fail, you experience a devastating crash of personal worthlessness. This is the path of burnout. It is a recipe for chronic anxiety because you have staked your inner peace on things you cannot ultimately control. Healthy striving, on the other hand, is born from a place of joy, contribution, and a love for the process itself. Its motivation is the genuine desire to master a skill, to solve a challenging problem, to create something of beauty or value, or to be of service to others. When you operate from this place, your focus is on the quality of the work itself. In this present moment, the joy is found in the doing, not just in the destination. Your self-worth is intrinsic. It is not dependent on the result. You can pour your heart and soul into a project, giving it your absolute best. If that project succeeds, there is joy and satisfaction. If it fails, there may be disappointment, but there is not devastation. You can see it as a learning experience, an opportunity for growth, because your core value as a person was never on the line. You are free to be daring, creative, and bold, because you are no longer terrified of the outcome. The practical application of this is the Zen principle of right action. This is the art of focusing only on what you can truly control: your own effort, your own intention, and your own integrity in this moment, and letting go of everything else. It involves several steps. First, you set a clear intention. Before beginning a task, ask yourself, why am I doing this? Is my intention to contribute, to help, to learn? To create aligning with a positive intention purifies the action from the start. Second, you give the task your full presence. You bring the dishwashing mind to your work. When you are writing an email, just write the email. When you are in a meeting, just be in the meeting. When you are focused on one task at a time with your full attention, your effectiveness increases dramatically and your stress plummets. Third, you act with integrity. You align your actions with your deepest values of honesty, kindness, and diligence. This creates a powerful sense of inner rightness that no external result, positive or negative, can touch. Finally, and most importantly, you release the outcome. You do your absolute best with a clear intention, full presence, and unwavering integrity, and then you let it go. You cannot control your boss's mood, the fluctuations of the stock market, your competitor's strategy, or whether a client says yes or no. To attach your inner peace to these wildly uncontrollable variables is a guaranteed path to suffering. You find your peace in the knowledge that you did your part, that you handled your side of the equation impeccably. The result is no longer your concern. There is a powerful story of a master archer that perfectly illustrates this principle. A young student watched his master, who could hit the center of the target with almost every shot. Seemingly without effort, the student, eager to learn his secret, asked, "Master, how do you maintain such intense focus on the distant target?" The master smiled and corrected him. "You misunderstand. I do not focus on the target at all. The target is the future. To focus on it is to invite anxiety and desire into the present moment. I ignore the target. He continued. Instead, I give my entire being to the perfection of the process. Right here, right now, I focus on my stance, feeling my feet connect firmly with the earth. I focus on my breath, allowing it to become slow, deep, and steady. I focus on the feeling of the wooden bow in my hand. I focus on the sensation of my fingers against the bowstring and the smooth, consistent pull as I draw it back. I dedicate myself completely to making this single process as perfect, fluid, and present as it can be. He then paused, looked at the student, and said, "If the process is perfect, hitting the target is just a natural consequence. It is an afterthought. My peace and my satisfaction are found here, in the drawing of the bow, not there, in the striking of the target. This is the mind we must bring to our work. We must fall in love with the process, with the drawing of the bow, not just the hitting of the target. This ultimately leads us to redefine success itself. The world may define success by the size of your paycheck, your job title, or the power you wield. But a Zen definition of a successful career is far richer. It is a career that engages your skills in a meaningful way. It is work that allows you to maintain your inner peace and integrity. It is a professional life that does not demand the sacrifice of your well-being, your relationships, or your ability to be present for the simple joys of your own existence. By focusing on the process and releasing our clinging to the outcome, we learn to navigate our ambitions with a newfound sense of peace and powerful effectiveness. But this very act of letting go of results forces us to confront the deep-seated fear that underpins so much of our striving, our profound discomfort with the unknown. How does Zen teach us to live and even to thrive in a world that is, by its very nature, completely and utterly uncertain? In learning to bring a Zen mind to the marketplace, we practice the art of focusing on the process and letting go of the outcome. This is a powerful practice, but it forces us to stand face to face with one of the most deep-seated fears of the human condition, the fear of the unknown. Our minds are allergic to uncertainty. The rational, planning part of our brain, the part that has helped our species survive, has a deep, primal need to know what is going to happen next. It abhors a vacuum, and when it is faced with the empty, open space of the future, the monkey mind frantically rushes in to fill it with stories. Because our brains are wired with a negativity bias, a survival mechanism that pays more attention to potential threats than potential rewards, the stories it tells are almost always ones of disaster and failure. This is the very engine of chronic anxiety, the relentless, exhausting attempt to map out, predict, and control a future that is, by its very nature, fundamentally uncontrollable. We live under the grand illusion of control. We create 5-year plans, detailed schedules, and retirement portfolios, believing that we can impose our will upon the chaos of existence. We try to control what others think of us through careful impression management. We try to control our own lives through discipline and sheer force of will. But this sense of being in control is a fragile mirage. A single phone call, a routine medical test, A chance encounter on the street, or a global event that no one predicted can shatter our carefully constructed plans in an instant. The central teaching of Buddhism, the law of anicca or impermanence, states that everything is in a constant state of flux. Your body is changing with every breath. Your thoughts are a ceaseless river. The seasons turn, cultures evolve, and stars are born and die. Nothing is fixed. Nothing is permanent. To resist this fundamental law of life, to try and build a permanent fortress of certainty in the middle of this flowing, ever-changing river, is the very definition of suffering. The struggle is not with the river. The struggle is with your resistance to its flow. The moment you realize that control is an illusion, a profound shift can occur. It is not a shift into despair, but into liberation. When you finally stop trying to fight the river, you can begin to learn the art of navigating it. So if we cannot have the certain answers that our anxious minds crave, what is the alternative? The alternative is to learn to love the questions. It is to become so comfortable in the state of not knowing that it ceases to be a source of fear and instead becomes a space of open, creative possibility. The anxious mind constantly demands answers. Will I get the job? Will this relationship last? Will I be healthy? Will I be okay? It needs to nail everything down. To put reality into a fixed and predictable box, the wise mind, the Zen mind, learns to relax in the open space of the question itself. The great poet Rainer Maria Rilke wrote, "Be patient toward all that is unsolved in your heart and try to love the questions themselves." There is more life, more growth, in living the question, what does it mean to be a good partner, than in having a rigid, fixed answer. This is where the concept of faith enters the Zen path. But faith here does not mean a blind belief in a supernatural deity who will magically solve our problems. It is something far more grounded and intimate. It is a profound trust, cultivated through practice, in two things. First, it is a trust in the process of life itself. It is a quiet confidence that even when things seem chaotic or painful, there is an underlying intelligence to the unfolding of reality. We may not understand it, but we can trust it. Second, and more importantly, it is a faith in yourself, not in your ego or your intellect, but in your own innate capacity to meet whatever arises. Through the practice of mindfulness, you come to know that you possess a deep well of awareness, resilience, and compassion. You don't need to know what the future holds, because you trust that when the future arrives, you will have the inner resources to handle it, moment by moment by moment. This is the shift from fearing the unknown to trusting your ability to navigate it. There is a timeless Taoist parable that illustrates this wisdom more beautifully than any philosophical explanation. An old farmer lived in a small village with his son. They had one horse, which was their most prized possession. One day, the horse ran away. The farmer's neighbors came to console him. "Oh, what terrible luck," they said. The farmer simply replied, "Good luck, bad luck, who knows?" A week later, the horse returned, and it brought with it a herd of 10 wild horses. The neighbors came to congratulate the farmer. "What incredible good fortune," they exclaimed. The farmer calmly replied, "Good luck, bad luck, who knows?" The next day, The farmer's son was trying to tame one of the wild horses when he was thrown from its back and broke his leg. The neighbors again came to offer their condolences. "How awful for you. This is truly bad luck." They lamented. The farmer, looking at his son's injury, just said, "Good luck, bad luck, who knows?" A few weeks later, the emperor's army marched into the village, conscripting every able-bodied young man for a brutal, hopeless war. The farmer's son, because of his broken leg, was the only young man in the village to be spared. The lesson of this story is profound. We exist within an infinitely complex web of cause and effect, and from our limited vantage point, we can never see the whole picture. To immediately label an event as good or bad is an act of ignorance. The job you didn't get might have saved you from a toxic work environment. The relationship that ended might have opened the space for a deeper form of self-love to emerge. The illness that forced you to slow down might have awakened you to the preciousness of your own life. Embracing the wisdom of "who knows" is to let go of our arrogant need to judge and control reality. It is to find peace, not in having all the answers, but in becoming comfortable with the mystery. It is to open our hands to life, rather than clenching our fists against it. We have now explored how to bring this Zen mind to our inner world, our relationships, our work, and to the great mystery of uncertainty itself. We have laid the foundational principles. The next step is to explore the specific conditions and practices that allow this wisdom to deepen, to move from an intellectual idea to a lived, embodied reality. And the most fundamental condition for this deep inner work is the one our noisy world has taught us to fear the most: silence. We have walked the path of embracing uncertainty, of learning to trust ourselves and the flow of life even when we cannot see the destination. This practice of letting go of our need for control is a profound step toward peace. Yet, to do so, we must be willing to inhabit the space that opens up when our frantic planning and worrying cease. We must be willing to face the one thing our modern world has conditioned us to avoid at all costs: silence. We live in a culture that is fundamentally at war with silence. We have become terrified of empty space, of unfilled moments. The instant a gap appears in the sensory landscape, in an elevator, in a line at the grocery store, in the quiet of our own homes, our hand instinctively reaches for a phone. We fill the void with a podcast, with music, with the endless scroll of social media, with anything to avoid the unnerving prospect of being left alone with our own minds. This constant stream of external noise is not just a habit, it is a subconscious strategy. We use the noise outside to drown out the noise inside. It is a desperate, ongoing attempt to distract ourselves from the chattering of the monkey mind. In this context, the conscious choice to turn off the devices, to step away from the torrent of information, and to intentionally embrace silence is one of the most radical and revolutionary acts of self-care you can perform. It is important to understand that there are two kinds of silence. The first is outer silence. This is the simple absence of external sound. It is finding a quiet room, taking a walk in nature, away from the noise of traffic, or simply agreeing with your family to have a period of quiet time. Creating outer silence is the first, essential step. It is like preparing a clean, empty canvas. You are stopping the relentless flow of new data that constantly feeds the mind and gives the monkey new branches to swing on. But creating outer silence will quickly reveal the second and far more challenging kind of silence, inner silence. This is the quieting of the ceaseless internal monologue. This is the space between thoughts. This is the stillness of the mind itself. You may find that as soon as the external world gets quiet, your inner world seems to get 10 times louder. The anxieties, the to-do lists, the memories, the judgments, they all rush to the stage to perform now that they have your full attention. This is normal. The key is to understand that you cannot force inner silence. You cannot command the mind to be quiet. For the command itself is just more noise. Instead, you use the container of outer silence to create the conditions under which inner silence can naturally, gracefully arise. There is a classic Zen metaphor that perfectly describes this process. Imagine your mind is a deep lake. For most of your life, the winds of constant thinking, worrying, planning, and sensory input have been blowing across its surface. The water is choppy, agitated, and turbulent. The sediment from the bottom has been stirred up, making the water murky and opaque. In this state, the lake can reflect nothing but its own turmoil. It cannot see the sky, the moon, the stars, or the trees on its banks. It is trapped in its own chaotic movement. This is the overthinking mind. The practice of entering silence is like a command for the wind to cease. You stop feeding the mind with new disturbances. And what happens when the wind stops? The lake does not become still instantly. The waves, from their own momentum, continue to move for a while. But gradually, they begin to soften. The ripples become smaller and smaller. And as the surface becomes calm, the sediment, the murky stuff of our conditioned thoughts, slowly begins to settle to the bottom. The water becomes clear, and now, for the first time, the lake can fulfill its true potential. In its perfect stillness, it becomes a flawless mirror, reflecting the vast, luminous sky, the brilliant moon, the distant stars. The profound wisdom of this metaphor is that the answers you seek, the clarity and peace you crave, are not something you need to create or find somewhere else. They are the sky. They are already here. They have always been here. They have simply been obscured by the constant agitation of your own mind. Wisdom and intuition do not arise from more thinking, from stirring up the lake even more. They arise from the silence. They emerge from the stillness. When the mind is clear enough to reflect the truth that is already present. This is why we often have our best ideas in the shower, or while taking a quiet walk, or in the moment just before we fall asleep. These are the rare moments when we have unintentionally allowed the winds of our thinking mind to die down, creating just enough stillness for a reflection of the sky to appear. The formal practice for cultivating this is the simple, powerful art of doing nothing. For 5 or 10 minutes each day, give yourself permission to enter a mini retreat in silence. Find a quiet place to sit. You don't need to sit in a special posture. You don't need to force yourself to focus on your breath. Your only instruction is this: for the next 10 minutes. You will do nothing. You will not read, You will not listen to music. You will not solve problems. You will not plan. You will simply sit, and you will allow everything to be exactly as it is. Be warned, this will likely feel intensely uncomfortable at first. Your mind, addicted to stimulation, will scream in protest. You will feel a powerful urge to get up, to check your phone, to do something. The practice is to notice this urge, to feel its energy in your body, and to simply stay seated. Do not fight the urge, but do not obey it. Just watch it, as you would watch a cloud pass in the sky. By sitting in silence and doing nothing, you are training yourself to be comfortable with the open space you have been running from your whole life. You are learning that you are okay, even without constant distraction. Silence is not empty. It is pregnant with potential. It is the fertile darkness of the soil from which all new life grows. It is the canvas upon which the masterpiece of your life can be painted with clarity and wisdom. In a world that shouts, silence is what allows you to hear the quiet whisper of your own intuition. It is the ultimate act of letting go of the compulsive need to think, to do, to fix, to become. And as we learn to rest in this silence, as the waters of the mind become still and clear, something very subtle and extraordinary may begin to happen. We start to notice the watcher. We become aware of the quiet, background presence that is experiencing the silence, that is aware of the thoughts as they pass. We have always had this deep, intuitive sense of a central I sitting at the very core of our being, the one who is in charge. But what is this I? Is it as solid and unchanging as it feels? Zen practice now invites us to turn the lens of our awareness around, to look directly at the looker, and to undertake the most radical investigation of all. We have sat in the profound sanctuary of silence, allowing the turbulent waters of the mind to become still. In that stillness, we have felt the clear, reflective surface of our own awareness. And in that clarity, a new object of inquiry comes into focus. It is the one thing we have always taken for granted, the one thing that feels more real and solid than anything else in our lives. It is the watcher, the thinker, the feeler. It is the persistent background sense of I. We feel it as a command center behind our eyes, a CEO in the boardroom of our brain, the constant, unchanging presence that has been with us through every experience of our lives. We say, I am happy, I am angry, I think, I want. This I seems to be the very bedrock of our existence. Today, we are going to do something truly radical. We are going to take the lamp of our awareness, turn it around 180 degrees, and shine it directly on this self. We are going to ask the most fundamental question of all Zen practice. Is this solid? Separate, I really there? Or is it the most convincing, most subtle, and most pervasive illusion we have ever created? This investigation into what Buddhism calls anatta, or no self, is not a journey into nihilism or a denial of our unique existence. It is the path to the greatest liberation of all. Let us begin this investigation together. Like gentle detectives searching for a mysterious entity, where does this I reside? First, let's look at the body. Is the I your body? It seems plausible, but your body is in a state of constant, ceaseless change. The cells you were made of 7 years ago are almost entirely gone, replaced by new ones. Your body ages. It gets sick. It heals. It feels strong. It feels weak. It is an ever-shifting process. If your I is your body, which version is the real you? The child, the teenager, the adult, the elder, the body is impermanent. A flowing river of biological processes. A fixed, unchanging, I cannot be found there. So, perhaps the I is our mind. Let's look closer. Is the I our feelings? Well, we have seen that feelings are like weather, constantly blowing through us. Joy, sadness, anger, peace, they arise and they pass away. If you are your feelings, you would cease to exist. When a feeling fades, you cannot be something so fleeting and unreliable. So, is the I our thoughts? We have already explored this. We have seen that thoughts are like clouds passing through the sky of our awareness. We are the witness of the thoughts, not the thoughts themselves. A thought of I am a failure is not a statement of fact about a solid self. It is simply a passing cloud, a mental event, a solid I cannot be found in the stream of thinking. Perhaps, then, the I is our life story, our collection of memories, our personality. This feels closer to home. We define ourselves by our past experiences, our roles: parent, child, artist, engineer, and our personality traits. But what is a story? It is a narrative woven together from memory. And what is a memory? It is just another thought, arising in the present moment. And this story is constantly being re-edited. The way you remember an event from your childhood today is different from how you will remember it in 20 years. Your personality, too, is not a fixed thing. You behave differently with your boss than you do with your best friend or your child. It is fluid, contextual. So if we look for the storyteller, we find only more stories. We find that what we call ourselves is like an onion. We can peel back the layers: our job, our social roles, our possessions, our personality, our memories, our body. We keep peeling, searching for the solid, essential core of the onion. But when we pull away the very last, thin layer, what do we find? We find nothing. There is no core. The onion was nothing but its layers. The self is the same. It is a bundle of processes, a collection of constantly changing physical and mental phenomena, with no one in charge. The self is not a noun, it is a verb. It is a process of selfing that the mind does from moment to moment, creating a temporary, useful, but ultimately illusory sense of a central commander. The ancient Greek philosopher Heraclitus said that you can never step into the same river twice. The river has a name. It has a continuous form, but its substance, the water, is always new, always flowing. You, too, are this river, the sense of a continuous I that woke up this morning and is the same I from your childhood, is a trick of memory. There is a continuity, just as the river is continuous. but there is no unchanging entity that is being carried along by it. Zen masters use a koan, a non-logical riddle, to point directly to this truth, bypassing the intellect. The koan is this: show me your original face. The face you had before your mother and father were born. This question is designed to break the thinking mind. It is impossible to answer with logic. Who were you before you had this body, this name, this personality, this story? It points you toward an experience of your true nature, which is not a thing, not a self, but the vast, open, luminous awareness in which all things arise: the sky, the witness, the silence. This original face is not a personal possession. It is the shared, universal consciousness that looks out through your eyes and my eyes. To realize this is not to lose yourself. It is to find a self that is infinitely larger, more resilient, and more free than the small, fragile ego you have been defending your entire life. The relief that comes with this insight is immeasurable. If there is no fixed, solid self, then who is there to be insulted? Who is there to fail? Whose reputation must be protected at all costs? The immense, lifelong burden of managing, defending, and polishing the fragile statue of me is suddenly lifted. You no longer have to live up to a rigid self-image. You are free to be spontaneous, to change, to grow, to be messy, to be magnificent. The energy that was once consumed by protecting the ego is now liberated for compassion, for creativity, and for a deep and fearless engagement with life. When you realize that you are not the cloud, but the sky, you no longer fear the weather. This profound realization that the self is not a separate, isolated island in a sea of others, but is in fact a verb, a process completely interwoven with the entire fabric of the universe, naturally dissolves the painful illusion of separation. When the idea of a solid me over here, separate from a solid you over there, begins to fade, what arises in its place is a deep, intuitive, and heartfelt understanding of our profound connection to all of life. This is the heart of the beautiful and essential teaching of interbeing. We have stood at the edge of a profound mystery, looking directly at the entity we call I, and finding that it is not a solid thing, but a fluid process, a verb rather than a noun. The investigation into no self, or anatta, can at first feel destabilizing, as if the very ground beneath our feet is dissolving. But this dissolution is not a fall into a cold, empty void. It is a homecoming, for the other side of the coin of emptiness is the warm, beating heart of interbeing. The very reason you cannot find a separate, isolated self is because you are deeply, inextricably, and beautifully interwoven with everything else in the universe. The boundaries are an illusion. Our existence is not one of being, but of interbeing. This term, interbeing, was coined by the Zen master Thich Nhat Hanh to express the profound truth that nothing can exist by itself. Everything in existence is dependent on everything else. To be is to interbe with all that is. To make this clear, let us engage in a simple but powerful contemplation. Imagine you are holding a single sheet of paper in your hands. Let us look deeply into this sheet of paper and see what is truly there. At first, you see a tree. You know the paper comes from a tree, likely from a forest far away, but we do not stop there. Look again, and you will see the sunshine. Without the sun's light and warmth, the tree could not have grown. So, the sun is in the paper. Look more deeply, and you will see a cloud floating in the sky. The cloud provided the rain that nourished the tree. Without the rain, there would be no tree, and thus no sheet of paper. So, the cloud is in the paper. Keep looking. You can see the logger who cut down the tree. You can see his hands, his sweat, and the breath he exhaled. You can see the wheat in the bread he ate for lunch that gave him the strength for his work. Therefore, the wheat field and the farmer who grew the wheat are also in this sheet of paper. Look further, and you see the logger's parents who gave him life. You see the people who built the factory that turned the wood pulp into paper, the engineers who designed the machinery, the truck driver who brought the paper to the store, and the clerk who sold it. The entire economy, all of human history, is present in this single sheet of paper. If you were to return any one of these elements to its source, if you give the sunshine back to the sun, the rain back to the cloud, the logger back to his parents, the wheat back to the earth, the sheet of paper could not exist. It is empty of a separate, independent self, but it is completely full of the entire cosmos. To be a sheet of paper is to interbe with the sun, the cloud, the forest, and all of humanity. Now, look at your own hand. You are no different from this sheet of paper. Look deeply, and you will see your parents, your grandparents, and all your ancestors stretching back through time. Their life, their love, and their struggles are present in your very DNA. You can see the sun, the earth, and the rain in the food you ate this morning. The food that has literally become the cells of your body at this very moment. You are breathing the air that has been cycled through countless plants and other living beings. The words you use to think, the ideas that form your opinions, the music that stirs your heart, none of it originated with you. It came from your culture, your teachers, your friends, your books. Your very consciousness is a collaboration. The firm line you draw around your skin, the line that separates me from not me, is a convenient fiction. You are a nexus, a temporary and miraculous gathering point for the entire universe. You are a wave in the ocean of existence. You are not separate from the ocean. You are the ocean, expressing itself for a little while as a wave. When this realization truly dawns, the painful feeling of loneliness and isolation begins to dissolve. How can you be lonely when the whole universe is conspiring to create you in every moment? How can you feel separate when you are breathing the same air as the trees and are made of the same stardust as the most distant galaxies? This is not a poetic sentiment. It is a description of reality. In the Mahayana Buddhist tradition, this interconnected reality is beautifully visualized in the image of Indra's net. Imagine a vast cosmic net that stretches to infinity in all directions. At every single point where the threads of the net cross, a single, perfect, multifaceted jewel is tied. Each jewel is unique and brilliant. But the most wondrous aspect of this net is that if you look closely into the polished surface of any one jewel, you will see reflected in it every other jewel in the entire infinite net. And in each of those reflections, you will find all the other reflections echoing back and forth for eternity. Each of us is one of these jewels. We are a unique expression of the whole, yet we contain and reflect the whole within us. The joy of another jewel is reflected in our own heart. The suffering of another jewel casts a shadow on our own surface. What happens to a single thread affects the entire net. This vision is the foundation for a truly organic and effortless compassion. When you deeply understand interbeing, harming another person becomes as nonsensical as your left hand wanting to injure your right hand. Polluting the planet is no longer a political issue. It becomes a direct act of self-harm. Compassion is not a moral duty we must force ourselves to perform. It becomes the most natural and logical response to the way things are. It is the recognition of kinship with all that exists. Our sense of a small, separate, and embattled self gives way to a sense of a vast, interconnected self, and our actions begin to flow from this place of profound belonging, this deep awareness of our connection with all things. This vision of reality as a shimmering, interwoven net fundamentally changes how we perceive the world. It cracks open our narrow, utilitarian view of reality and allows us to see the profound beauty not just in things we deem grand, perfect, or useful, but also in the humble, the flawed, the ordinary, and the transient. It opens our eyes to a uniquely Zen aesthetic, a way of finding a quiet, heartbreaking grace in the imperfect fabric of life itself. This is the wisdom of wabi-sabi. Having realized our profound interconnectedness, our nature as a single jewel reflecting the entire cosmos of Indra's net, we begin to see the world differently. The hard lines between me and not me soften, but this new vision can be jarring when contrasted with the world we have built. A world that is engaged in a relentless war against reality. Our modern culture is driven by a cult of perfection. We are bombarded with images of flawless, airbrushed bodies, gleaming new products with no scratches or dents, and social media feeds curated to present lives of perpetual success and happiness. We are taught to hide our flaws, to fight the natural process of aging, to discard anything that is old or worn, and to constantly strive for an impossible ideal of sleek, sterile, and permanent perfection. This pursuit is a source of immense anxiety, because it is a denial of life itself. Life is not perfect. Life is not permanent. Life is messy, unpredictable, and transient. To find peace, we must not only stop fighting our own minds, we must stop fighting the very nature of reality. Zen philosophy, particularly as it has been expressed through the culture of Japan, offers a gentle, beautiful, and profound antidote to this madness. It is the worldview known as wabi-sabi. These words are notoriously difficult to translate directly into English, as they represent not just an aesthetic, but a deep feeling, a way of being. Let us explore them separately. Wabi speaks to a kind of rustic simplicity, a quiet and humble elegance. It is the feeling of contentment that comes from needing less, a freedom from the race of materialism. It is the beauty of an unadorned wooden bowl, the quiet dignity of a simple, sparsely furnished room, the sense of peace found in a solitary walk through a misty forest. Wabi is an appreciation for the understated, the modest, and the authentic. It is the beauty that is found not in opulence, but in simplicity. Sabi, on the other hand, refers to the beauty that comes with the passage of time. It is the loveliness of things that bear the marks of age and experience. It is the dark patina on a well-loved silver teapot, the smooth, worn texture of a stone step, the faded colors of an old textile, the network of fine lines on an elderly person's face. Sabi is the visible trace of impermanence, the quiet celebration of things growing old. It finds beauty not in the new and shiny, but in the rust, the cracks, and the signs that an object or a person has a history, that it has lived together. Wabi-sabi is a philosophy that finds beauty in things that are imperfect, impermanent, and incomplete. It is a compassionate acceptance of the natural cycle of growth, decay, and death. It turns away from the loud, polished, and symmetrical, and finds a heartbreaking grace in the quiet, the weathered, and the asymmetrical. It is the aesthetic of the real. Once you begin to see with wabi-sabi eyes, your entire world begins to change. You start to see beauty where you once saw only flaws. The crack in a sidewalk where a tiny weed is growing becomes a testament to the persistence of life. A chipped teacup, instead of being an object to be discarded, becomes more precious because its flaw tells a story. A worn wooden table is more beautiful than a new one because it holds the memory of countless shared meals and conversations. We can find wabi-sabi everywhere in nature. Nature is never perfect, never symmetrical in a manufactured way. A gnarled old tree, bent by the wind, has more character and beauty than a perfectly straight, manicured one. A single, falling autumn leaf is a profound symbol of transient beauty. The quiet melancholy of a foggy morning, the irregular pattern of moss on a rock. This is the art of the universe, and it is pure wabi-sabi. But the most important place to apply this compassionate lens is to ourselves. We spend so much energy fighting our own perceived imperfections. We hate our wrinkles. We hide our scars. We lament our crooked teeth. We berate ourselves for our flawed personalities. The cult of perfection has turned us against our own humanity. To see ourselves with wabi-sabi eyes is a revolutionary act of self-love. Your wrinkles are the map of your laughter and your worries. Your scars are the proof that you have healed. Your unique quirks are what make you you, not a generic, flawless ideal. To accept your own impermanence and imperfection is to finally be at peace in your own skin. It is to recognize that you are not a problem to be solved, but a living, breathing, evolving story to be appreciated. Even our spiritual practice can be seen through this lens. We often come to meditation with a goal of perfection, seeking a mind that is perpetually still, clear, and blissful, when the messy, unpredictable thoughts and feelings inevitably arise. we feel we have failed. Wabi-sabi teaches us to appreciate the texture of our own consciousness. The mind is a natural, living process. Sometimes it will be clear and calm like a mountain lake. Other times it will be turbulent and messy. There is a beauty in its aliveness, in its very imperfection. There is a famous story about the great tea master who perfected the way of tea. Sen no Rikyu. One day, he asked his son to clean and prepare the garden path for some important guests. His son, wanting to impress his father, worked for hours. He raked the gravel until it was perfect, trimmed every bush with precision, and swept up every single fallen leaf from the ground and the moss. When he was finished, the garden was immaculate, a picture of flawless, logical order. He proudly presented his work to Rikyu. The tea master surveyed the perfect garden in silence for a few moments. Then he walked over to a maple tree. Its leaves, a brilliant crimson, and gently shook one of its branches. A few leaves drifted down, scattering in a random, natural pattern across the pristine moss and perfectly raked gravel. Rikyu then turned to his son and said simply, "Now, it is ready." He understood that true beauty is not sterile perfection. It must contain a hint of the natural, the accidental, the impermanent. The meticulously clean garden was admirable, but the few fallen leaves gave it a soul. They were a reminder of the season, of the transient beauty of autumn. They were the touch of sabi that made the garden truly perfect. Wabi-sabi is more than just an aesthetic. It is a gentle, compassionate, and sane way of navigating the world. It is the art of being at peace with the way things are. It is the deep, quiet joy that comes from seeing the sacred in the simple, the flawed, and the forgotten, as we learn to see the world and ourselves through this lens of interbeing and wabi-sabi. Our hearts naturally soften. The hard, protective shell of the separate, striving self begins to melt, revealing a natural desire not just to find peace for ourselves, but to share that peace and help alleviate the suffering of all beings. We begin to move from a path of self-realization to a path of compassionate action. This is the noble and selfless journey of the Bodhisattva. We have journeyed inward, exploring the vast, interconnected nature of our own minds. We have sat with the wisdom of interbeing, realizing we are not separate islands but threads in a cosmic net. We have learned to see with the eyes of wabi-sabi, finding a gentle, heartbreaking beauty in the imperfect fabric of reality. The fruit of this journey is a growing sense of inner peace, a quiet spaciousness that was once unimaginable. But as we stand in this newfound clearing, a profound question begins to arise from the silence. Is this the final destination? Is the entire purpose of this spiritual path simply to build a comfortable, private sanctuary for myself, a peaceful fortress where I can hide while the world outside continues to groan with suffering? The Mahayana tradition of Zen answers this question with a clear, compassionate, and resounding no. It teaches that personal liberation is not the end of the path. It is the beginning. It is the necessary training for a far greater, more noble, and more selfless purpose. It is the gateway to the path of the Bodhisattva. The word bodhisattva is from Sanskrit. Bodhi means awakened or enlightened, and sattva means a being, Thus, a bodhisattva is an awakened being, but what defines them is not just their own awakening, but the incredible vow they take, a vow that is at the very heart of their existence. The bodhisattva looks upon the world and with the clear eyes of wisdom sees the depth of its suffering, the fear, the confusion, the loneliness, the anger, moved by a compassion so profound it is incomprehensible to the ordinary mind. The bodhisattva makes a vow: I will not enter final, peaceful nirvana. I will not step off the wheel of birth and death for my own sake. I will remain in this world, in all its messy, painful, beautiful forms, until every single sentient being, every human, every animal, every insect, every ghost in every realm has been liberated from suffering. This is a staggering act of love. It is the ultimate turning away from the question, how can I save myself, to the far more expansive question, how can my existence be of benefit to all? It is crucial to understand that a bodhisattva is not necessarily a divine, celestial being adorned in jewels and light. Although they are often depicted that way in art, a bodhisattva can be a schoolteacher who patiently helps a struggling child. A bodhisattva can be a nurse who holds the hand of a dying patient with tenderness. A bodhisattva can be an activist who speaks truth to power on behalf of the oppressed. A bodhisattva can be a parent who, despite their exhaustion, responds to their child's cry in the middle of the night with love instead of anger. A bodhisattva is any person who has oriented their life around the pole star of compassion, who feels the pain of the world as their own, and who chooses, again and again, not to turn away. They see that their own peace is inextricably linked with the peace of all beings. As long as one being suffers, their own liberation is incomplete. In the rich iconography of Mahayana Buddhism, the archetypal figure of compassion is Avalokiteshvara, known in China as Kuan Yin and in Vietnam as Quan Thay Om. He is the bodhisattva who hears the cries of the world. One story tells that as Avalokiteshvara looked down upon the world, he became so overwhelmed by the sheer scale of suffering that his head shattered into 1,000 pieces. The Buddha Amitabha, seeing his compassionate despair, gathered the fragments and reassembled them into 11 heads, so that the bodhisattva could hear the cries of suffering from all 10 directions of the universe. But Avalokiteshvara then realized that even with 11 heads to hear the suffering, he only had 2 arms to help. In that moment of compassionate intent, he was blessed with 1,000 arms, and in the palm of each hand, there was an eye. This beautiful, powerful image reveals the nature of true compassion. It is not a passive, sentimental pity. It is active, engaged, and wise. The 1,000 hands represent the countless skillful means, the infinite ways, both large and small, that we can reach out to alleviate suffering. The 1,000 eyes represent the wisdom prajna needed to see what is truly required in any given situation. To understand the true nature of suffering and its causes, you do not need to be a celestial being to walk this path. You can be a bodhisattva in a t-shirt and jeans. The 1,000 arms are at work in the world through your ordinary actions, every single day. When you practice deep listening, offering your full, silent presence to a friend who is in pain, You are lending them one of your 1,000 hands when you choose to speak a word of encouragement instead of criticism to a colleague who is struggling. That is the action of a bodhisattva. When you pick up a piece of trash on the street, not because anyone is watching, but out of respect for our shared home, you are acting with 1,000 hands. When you are standing in a long line and you offer a genuine smile to the overworked, stressed out cashier, you are bringing the bodhisattva's compassion into the marketplace. Each small act of kindness, patience, generosity, and courage is a manifestation of this noble path. This is why stopping our own overthinking is not a selfish pursuit. When your mind is a chaotic storm of personal worries, anxieties about your future, and regrets about your past, you have no energy left over for anyone else. You are trapped in the small, dark room of your own ego. You do not have the spaciousness to truly hear another person's pain. You do not have the mental clarity to see what is needed. The practice of calming the mind, of letting go, of realizing no self, is what opens the door of that room. It frees up an immense amount of energy that was previously consumed by the monkey mind. This liberated energy naturally transforms into compassion. You become available to the world. Your personal peace becomes the source of the peace you can offer others. The great masters teach that enlightenment is like a bird, and it needs 2 wings to fly. One wing is wisdom, the deep seeing into the nature of reality impermanence, emptiness, into being. This is the wing that frees us from our own suffering. The other wing is compassion, the active, heartfelt response to the suffering of the world that wisdom reveals. Wisdom without compassion can become cold, dry, and detached. Compassion without wisdom can be clumsy, ineffective, and can even cause more harm. The bodhisattva path is the path of cultivating both wings in perfect balance, learning to fly freely for the benefit of all. This grand and noble path does not begin in the celestial realms or in some future moment after you are perfected. It begins right here, right now, and it begins in the most humble and immediate place imaginable, the very vehicle you inhabit on this journey. It begins with learning to listen to the profound and often ignored wisdom of your own body. We have walked the noble path of the bodhisattva, turning the light of our practice outward to embrace the world with 1,000 compassionate hands. This great vow to be of service, to alleviate suffering, is not an abstract, heavenly ideal. It is a path that must be walked on this earth, in this life, and within the only vehicle we have for this journey, our own body. For most of us in the modern world, our relationship with our body is a troubled one. We treat it like a machine that we own, a tool to be optimized, or an object to be judged. We fuel it with caffeine and sugar to push it past its limits. We criticize it for not conforming to an impossible aesthetic ideal. And for the most part, we simply ignore it, living almost entirely from the neck up, lost in the disembodied world of thought. We have become disconnected from our own physical foundation. Zen invites us to come home. It teaches us that the body is not a dumb vehicle for the intelligent mind. The body is an intelligent, living ecosystem in its own right. It is a wise and profoundly honest teacher, And it is our most direct, unwavering connection to the truth of the present moment. The mind, as we have seen, is a master storyteller. It can lie, it can confabulate, it can travel to imaginary pasts and hypothetical futures. It can convince you of things that are completely untrue. The body, on the other hand, is incapable of lying. It exists only in this present moment, and it reports the truth of this moment with unflinching honesty. When you are sitting in a meeting, telling your boss that you are fine with a decision, your mind might be weaving a story of compliance and agreement, but your body is telling the truth. Your jaw is clenched, your shoulders are tight around your ears, and your stomach is in a cold knot. The body is the repository of the truths we are not yet ready to consciously admit. It is where we store our unprocessed grief, our unexpressed anger, our deep-seated fears, that vague feeling of unease you get when you meet a new person, that gut feeling that a situation isn't right. This is not random noise. This is the body's intelligence speaking to you directly, a form of perception that is faster and often more accurate than our slow, analytical logic. When you feel a genuine moment of joy, it is not an abstract concept. It is a physical sensation, a warmth that spreads through your chest, a lightness in your limbs, an involuntary smile. To learn to listen to the body is to learn to listen to the truth. It is to have access to a wise counselor who is with you 24 hours a day, constantly offering feedback on your inner state and your relationship to the world around you. The primary practice for rebuilding this lost connection is the body scan meditation. This is not just an exercise for relaxation. It is a profound practice of inhabiting your own life, of reclaiming your own physical territory from the colonization of thought. The practice is simple. You begin by finding a comfortable position, either sitting or lying down, and closing your eyes. You take a few gentle breaths to settle. Then, you bring the beam of your awareness to a specific part of your body, perhaps starting with the toes of your left foot. Your instruction is not to think about your toes, but to feel them from the inside. What sensations are actually present? Is there warmth, coolness, a tingling sensation, a feeling of pressure from a sock, or maybe you feel nothing at all? If so, the sensation is simply absence of sensation. There is no right or wrong feeling. The goal is just to notice with a gentle, curious, and non-judgmental attention. Then, you slowly move the beam of your awareness up your body as if you are filling it with a warm, liquid light. You feel the sole of the foot, the heel, the ankle. You move up into the calf muscle, the shin, the knee. You simply rest your attention in each area, feeling whatever is there to be felt, without any need to change or fix it. You continue this patient journey through both legs, into the hips and pelvis, the lower back and abdomen, up through the chest and upper back, down through the shoulders and into each arm, each hand, each finger. Finally, you bring your awareness to the neck, the jaw, a place where we hold so much tension, the face, the eyes, and the crown of the head. By the end, you have created a complete, holistic sense of your body as a single, vibrant field of sensation. This practice, done regularly, trains your mind to be more sensitive to the body's subtle signals throughout the day. You begin to notice the first signs of stress as a tightness in your shoulders, rather than waiting until you have a full-blown tension headache. You begin to notice the connection between your anxious thoughts and the knot in your stomach. You are relearning your body's native language. Consider a wild animal. Like a deer in a forest, the deer does not have an overthinking mind. It does not worry about its career prospects or its social status. Yet, it possesses a profound and flawless wisdom. Its body knows exactly what to do. Moment by moment, it knows when to be on high alert, its ears twitching, sensing a distant predator. It knows when to explode with incredible energy to flee from danger, and crucially, once the threat has passed, its body knows how to release that immense stress completely, to shake it off and return to a state of calm grazing. It doesn't lie awake at night, replaying the chase in its mind. Its body knows when it needs to rest, when it needs to find water, when it is safe. We are also animals. We are born with this same deep, instinctual, bodily intelligence. But the constant noise of our analytical minds has drowned out its quiet, essential voice. The practice of listening to the body is a way of reclaiming this forgotten inheritance. With this understanding, the way we care for our bodies is transformed. It is no longer a matter of vanity or a grudging obligation to our health. Caring for your body becomes a spiritual practice. Preparing and eating a nourishing meal is an act of reverence for your own life. Getting enough sleep is not a luxury. It is a way of allowing your wise teacher to rest and regenerate. Moving your body, whether through yoga, walking, or dancing, is a way of celebrating its vitality and releasing stored tensions. You are not just looking after a machine, you are tending to the sacred temple in which your awareness resides. By learning to listen to the wisdom of the body and acting with the compassionate spirit of the Bodhisattva, we begin to integrate our practice into the very fabric of our being. This path is beautifully simple, yet it is not always easy. The journey is long, and there will be times of great clarity and progress. But there will also be times of profound confusion, doubt, and disillusionment. How do we navigate these inevitable ups and downs on the path? Zen teaches that for this long walk, we need two essential companions, a great doubt and a great faith. We have walked a long and varied path together on this journey. We have learned to tend to the garden of our inner world, to see ourselves in the mirrors of our relationships, to bring presence to our work, to embrace uncertainty, to find wisdom in silence, and to listen to the deep intelligence of our own bodies. We have gathered a collection of profound and practical tools, yet, for anyone who walks a path of inner work for any length of time, a challenging phase inevitably arrives. It is the plateau. The initial excitement of discovery fades. The techniques that once felt so liberating can start to feel mechanical and stale. Progress seems to halt. And in this stillness, a new kind of thought arises. A cynical and corrosive doubt. Am I really getting anywhere? Is this actually working? I still get angry. I still worry. Maybe I'm just not cut out for this. Maybe this is all just a pointless game. This is not a sign that your practice has failed. It is a sign that it is deepening. You are moving past the initial consolations and are beginning to approach the great existential heart of the matter. And Zen teaches that this very energy of doubt, if understood and harnessed correctly, can be transformed from a poison into the most powerful fuel for your journey. We must make a crucial distinction between ordinary, petty doubt and what the Zen masters call great doubt. Ordinary doubt is the voice of the ego trying to protect itself. It is cynical, skeptical, and energy draining. It whispers, "This is too hard. It's not worth it. There's probably nothing at the end of this anyway." It is a form of resistance, a closing down. Great doubt, or daiji in Japanese, is the exact opposite. It is not a closing down, but a total opening up. It is a profound, all-consuming, burning sense of inquiry. It is the don't-know state of the beginner's mind, amplified to an existential intensity. It is the moment when the small questions of the ego fall away, and you are left with the one or two great questions that lie at the heart of human existence. What is this life? Who am I? Really, beneath all the layers of personality and conditioning, what is this awareness that is looking out through my eyes? What happens when this body dies? Great doubt is not a dry, intellectual exercise. It is a fire in the belly, a question that you live and breathe, a sacred wound that you refuse to soothe with easy answers or comfortable beliefs. It is this great doubt that keeps a practitioner on the meditation cushion when it is boring or difficult. It is the unwavering commitment to see for oneself, to know the truth directly, not just to believe what someone else has said. In the Rinzai school of Zen, this powerful energy of great doubt is cultivated and focused through the practice of the koan. A koan is a seemingly nonsensical story or question given by a Zen master to a student. It is a technology of transformation. You have likely heard the most famous one from the master Hakuin, 2 hands clap, and there is a sound. What is the sound of 1 hand? The student is instructed to pour their entire being into solving this riddle. But the koan is not a puzzle to be solved with logic. Any intellectual answer the student brings to the master, is it the wind, is it silence, will be immediately rejected. The koan is designed to be a great spiritual irritant. It is a piece of grit introduced into the oyster of the mind. The thinking, rational mind, which believes it can solve any problem, hurls itself against the koan again and again, and again and again. It fails. The purpose of the koan is to completely exhaust the logical mind, to bring it to a state of total surrender, to show it its own limits. It is in this state of surrender, when the chattering intellect finally gives up, that a breakthrough can occur, a direct, intuitive flash of insight into the nature of reality, an experience called kensho. The koan uses the immense power of great doubt to shatter the prison of our conceptual thinking, but this fiery, relentless engine of great doubt, on its own, could be dangerous. It could lead to nihilism, despair, or mental exhaustion. It needs a container. It needs an anchor to keep the ship from being torn apart in the storm of not knowing. This essential partner to great doubt is what is called great faith. or Daishin. And just as with great doubt, we must understand that this is not ordinary faith. It is not a blind belief in a set of doctrines or a deity demanded by an external authority. Zen faith is a deep, quiet, and grounded trust that is cultivated from within. This great faith is threefold. First, it is faith in the path itself. It is the trust that the way of mindfulness, presence, and compassion, as laid out by the Buddha and generations of masters, is a viable and effective path to liberation. We trust it not because we are told to, but because we can see, even in our own limited experience, that when we are present, we suffer less, and when we are lost in thought, we suffer more. We trust that countless others have walked this path and have found freedom. Second, it is great faith in yourself. This is absolutely crucial. It is the deep and unwavering trust in what is called your own Buddha nature. It is the faith that you, just as you are, with all your flaws and neuroses, already possess the innate, luminous capacity for awakening. You are not fundamentally broken or sinful or unworthy. Your true nature is the clear, open sky, not the passing clouds. This faith is what allows you to treat yourself with compassion when you stumble, and to get back up and continue the journey. Third, it is great faith in the practice itself. It is trusting that even on the days when your meditation feels like a complete failure, when your mind is a chaotic mess, the simple act of showing up, of sitting on the cushion, of bringing your awareness back just one more time, is planting a seed. You may not see the flower today, or tomorrow, or for many years, but you trust that the seed is being watered, and that in its own time, it will grow. Great doubt and great faith are the two wings of the great bird of enlightenment. They work together. Doubt without faith is a cynical dead end. Faith without doubt can become a sleepy, complacent belief system, but together, they create a dynamic, powerful, and balanced path. Great doubt is the engine that propels you into the unknown. Great faith is the sturdy hull of the ship that gives you the confidence to make the journey, and the rudder that keeps you pointed toward the shore of awakening. The spiritual life is not a smooth, linear ascent. It is a living, breathing dance between the fire of inquiry and the cool water of trust, between the fierce effort of striving and the gentle art of surrender. We learn to embrace both, to understand that even our moments of feeling utterly lost are not a deviation from the path. They are the path itself. And with the engine of great doubt propelling us and the anchor of great faith holding us steady, we journey on, we practice, we inquire, we live our lives. But where, ultimately, does this path lead? What is the final destination? The ultimate secret of Zen is perhaps its most beautiful paradox. The gate we have been striving so hard to find has been open all along. The destination we seek is the very place from which we started. We have walked this path together, propelled by the engine of a great doubt and held by the anchor of a great faith. We have questioned and we have trusted. We have explored the deepest recesses of our own minds and the vast, interconnected web of all existence. We have engaged in this great spiritual search. This noble quest for an end to the suffering caused by our own overthinking, this striving for a state of peace, clarity, and liberation. We have been like a traveler on a long and arduous journey, looking for the gate to a hidden, peaceful kingdom. And now, we arrive at the final secret, the most profound and beautiful paradox of the entire path. It is the wisdom of what is called the gateless gate. The great secret is this: the gate you have been so desperately searching for does not exist. And the reason it does not exist is because you have been on the inside the entire time. This can be difficult to grasp, because our minds are conditioned to think in terms of goals and achievements. We think there is a me who is here, unenlightened and suffering, and an enlightenment that is over there, a future destination I must struggle to reach. This very idea of a separate seeker and a separate goal is the essence of the illusion. It is the core activity of the ego, the striving itself, the desperate search for an escape from this present moment, is the very thing that prevents us from seeing the peace that is already here. The gate is the belief that you are separate from what you seek. You have been trying to break into a house where you are already the owner, where all the doors and windows have been wide open from the very beginning. So what, then, has been the purpose of all this practice? What was the point of watching the breath, of letting go, of investigating the self? These practices were never steps toward a destination. They were acts of subtraction, not addition. They were methods for clearing the dust from your eyes so that you could see what has always been right in front of you. The practice of watching the breath was not to get to the present moment, but to stop your mind from constantly running away from it. The practice of letting go was not to achieve a state of non-clinging, but to stop doing the tiring work of clinging. The practice of investigating the self was not to attain no self, but to see that a separate, solid self was never there to begin with. The peace you have been seeking is not the prize you get at the end of the race. It is your fundamental nature. It is the silence that is always present beneath the noise. The practices simply help you to stop making so much noise. The entire arc of this journey is beautifully depicted in a classic series of Zen illustrations known as the 10 Bulls, or the ox herding pictures. In the first picture, we see a man, lost and alone, frantically searching for his lost ox. The ox represents our true nature, our original, peaceful mind. The man represents us, lost in suffering, consumed by our overthinking. In the next pictures, he discovers the tracks of the ox, then gets a fleeting glimpse of its hindquarters. This is like our first encounter with the teachings, our first flicker of insight. Then comes the struggle. He has to catch the ox with a rope and tame it. The ox is wild and powerful, pulling him in every direction. This is the hard work of meditation, the wrestling with the powerful, habitual energy of the monkey mind. Gradually, through patient and gentle practice, the ox becomes tame. The man no longer needs to pull on the rope. He can ride on the ox's back, playing a flute, looking at the sky, his heart filled with joy. He is in harmony with his own true nature. The struggle is over. He rides the ox all the way home. When he arrives, he gets off the ox and puts it in the stable. The tools of the practice, the whip and rope, are put aside. He has transcended the need for forceful discipline. Then, in the next stage, the ox itself disappears. He has realized that the ox, his true nature, was never separate from himself to begin with. The seeker and the sought have merged. This leads to the eighth picture, a simple, perfect, empty circle. This represents the profound realization of emptiness, or shunyata, the dissolution of all concepts, including the concept of a separate self and a separate enlightenment. But the journey does not end in this empty circle, in this absolute void. This is the crucial step that Zen emphasizes. In the ninth picture, the man re-emerges. The caption reads, "Returning to the source." He now sees the world with fresh eyes. The streams flow. The flowers bloom red. The world is just as it was. But his perception of it is utterly transformed. And this leads to the final, 10th picture. Here we see a simple, joyful, perhaps even portly man with a bare belly, returning to the village and the marketplace. He is not in a monastery. He is not levitating. He is sharing a bottle of wine with ordinary people. With butchers and fishmongers, he is utterly ordinary. Yet his presence radiates a simple, unassuming grace. This is the final stage of the path. It is not an escape from the world, but a complete and compassionate return to it. This is what it truly means to stop thinking too much. It does not mean you become a thoughtless vegetable. The master in the 10th picture still thinks. He plans. He remembers, but he is no longer identified with his thoughts. He is no longer tormented by them. The mind has been transformed from a tyrannical master into a useful and trusted servant. The peace he has found is not a fragile state that needs to be protected from the world. It is a deep, abiding stillness that he carries with him into the heart of the marketplace. He has come home to himself, and in doing so, he has come home to the world. This is the homecoming that awaits you. You do not need to become someone else. You do not need to eradicate your personality or renounce your unique life. The entire journey has been about returning to who you truly are. Beneath the layers of conditioning and fear, it is about discovering the vast, silent, peaceful awareness that has been patiently waiting for you all along. The gate was never locked. Your own hand was simply covering your eyes. The practice is nothing more than the gentle act of lowering that hand and seeing the light that has always and will always be here. We have now traveled a great distance together on a journey that took us from the frantic, chattering marketplace of the mind to the silent, open sky of our own true nature. We began by bravely naming the uninvited guest, the restless monkey mind that holds so many of us captive. We learned to find a steadfast friend and anchor in the simple, honest rhythm of our own breath, a tool to pull us back, again and again, to the only time that is real, the present moment. We discovered the profound liberation in the art of letting go, of allowing the river of thought and feeling to flow by without being swept away. From that shore of presence, we journeyed deeper. We dared to look into the very substance of a thought and see its miraculous emptiness. We learned to see the world with the fresh, curious eyes of a beginner's mind, and tasted the effortless grace of no mind. where action and awareness merge into one. We found the sacred in the ordinary, discovering that washing a dish can be as profound as any prayer. We learned to welcome our most difficult emotions as honored guests, and to see our relationships not as a source of conflict, but as a perfect mirror for our own inner work. We walk through the worlds of ambition and uncertainty, guided by the wisdom of process and the peace of acceptance. We touched the selfless heart of the Bodhisattva. And finally, we came home, returning through the gateless gate to the very place where we began, but seeing it for the very first time. If there is one essential truth to carry with you from this entire journey, let it be this: the peace you are seeking is not in some distant future, a prize to be won after you have perfectly disciplined your mind. It is not something you need to build, acquire, or achieve. It is your original nature. It is the silent, spacious, and indestructible awareness that was here before your first thought and will be here after your last. The goal of this path was never to wage a war against your mind and obliterate every thought. It was simply to change your relationship to your thoughts, to go from being the prisoner locked inside the noisy cell, to becoming the compassionate warden who holds the keys, free to come and go. The off switch for overthinking is not a switch that destroys the machine, but the quiet wisdom that knows the machine is merely a tool, and you are its master, not its slave. You now have the map, and you possess all the tools you will ever need. The path forward is not complex. It is a path of gentle, patient, and persistent practice. It is found in the next breath you take, and the one after that. Do not be discouraged when the monkey chatters, for it will. Simply smile, acknowledge it, and gently return your attention to the anchor of your breath. Do not be discouraged when you forget. The practice is not in never forgetting, but in the tender act of remembering again and again. You are the sky, vast, open, and at peace. Your thoughts, your feelings, your life circumstances, they are merely the weather. The clouds that pass through, let them come, let them be, and let them go. Breathe in, breathe out. You are already home.